Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto was the biological son of Beerus and the apprentice of Whis Naruto x Vados x Android 21, Dragon Ball Super. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. Awakening Divinity. The full moon hung impossibly large in the night sky, bathing Konoha's rooftops in ethereal silver light. Naruto Uzumaki crouched atop the Hokage monument, his silhouette a solitary figure against the vastness of the cosmos. Something pulled at him tonight, something beyond the familiar call of the Nine Tails. His skin prickled with inexplicable energy, and his normally blue eyes reflected an unusual violet hue in the moonlight. "What's happening to me?" he whispered, his breath condensing in the cool night air. 3 days had passed since his return from the diplomatic mission to the Land of Iron, and these strange symptoms had only intensified. The mission itself had been a success. Naruto's natural charisma and hard-earned wisdom had helped negotiate a complex treaty between former adversaries. At 21, he'd grown into a formidable shinobi whose reputation extended far beyond the borders of the Fire Country. Yet tonight, he felt like a stranger in his own skin. Another wave of energy surged through his body, and he clutched his stomach. The seal containing the Nine Tails remained intact, but something else stirred beneath it, something ancient and unfamiliar. Purple energy, like nothing he'd ever channeled before, crackled between his fingertips before dissipating into the night air. "This isn't chakra," he muttered, examining his hand with narrowed eyes. A series of rapid footfalls announced someone's approach. Naruto didn't turn. He'd recognized the distinctive rhythm of Sakura's steps years ago. "I thought I'd find you up here," she said, coming to stand beside him. Her medical pouch hung at her hip. She'd come prepared. "Kakashi-sensei told me about your report. You mentioned feeling strange energy fluctuations." Naruto nodded, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. "It's getting worse. And there's something else." He hesitated, unsure how to describe the bizarre cravings that had plagued him for days. "I keep wanting to eat things I've never even heard of before. Yesterday I found myself daydreaming about something called cosmic custard and supernova soup. Does that make any medical sense to you?" Sakura frowned, her analytical mind already cataloging symptoms. "Not in any medical text I've studied. Have you spoken with Kurama about this? He's being unusually quiet." Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward on the familiar presence of the nine-tailed fox. "Almost like he's worried." "The Nine Tails? Worried?" Sakura's tone betrayed her concern. "That's never a good sign." Without warning, Naruto doubled over as a spasm of energy rocked through his body. This time, visible purple energy flickered across his skin, replacing the familiar orange chakra cloak with something altogether different. The energy carried a distinct aura, not malevolent like the Nine Tails' raw power, but somehow more primordial. Sakura's hands immediately glowed green with healing chakra as she knelt beside him. "Your vital signs are fluctuating wildly. This energy, it's interfering with my diagnostic jutsu. It feels like," Naruto gasped, struggling to articulate the sensation. "Like something's awakening. Something that's always been there, but dormant." The energy subsided as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Naruto breathing heavily. In the momentary calm, he made a decision. "I need to see Granny Tsunade." Dawn broke over the Hokage Tower as Tsunade scrutinized the test results with growing bewilderment. She'd been awake all night running increasingly sophisticated analyses on Naruto's blood and tissue samples. The former Hokage had converted an entire section of her private laboratory for this single purpose, and the resulting data defied everything she understood about human physiology. "This makes no sense," she muttered, magnifying a cellular image on the screen. "These markers aren't human. They're not even of this world." Naruto sat shirtless on an examination table, his torso covered in complex seal markings Tsunade had applied to monitor the strange energy fluctuations. "Not of this world. What does that mean?" Tsunade turned to him, amber eyes sharp despite her fatigue. "It means, brat, that part of your genetic structure contains elements I can't identify. Elements that appear to be Cosmic in origin. Cosmic. Like, from space. Naruto looked skeptical. I know my dad was impressive, but I'm pretty sure both my parents were human. According to all historical records, yes. Tsunade gestured to another screen displaying Naruto's known genealogy. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki were extraordinary shinobi, but fundamentally human. This is something else entirely. Shizune entered with another set of test results. Her expression grave. Lady Tsunade, the energy readings from the latest flare-up, they're similar to the dimensional distortions we recorded during the war with Kagaya Otsutsuki. Great. Naruto groaned. So I'm turning into an alien. No, Tsunade said firmly. Whatever this is, it's been part of your genetic makeup from birth. It's just activating now, for some reason. A series of rapid knocks interrupted them as Kakashi Hatake, the sixth Hokage, appeared at the laboratory door. Despite the early hour, he looked fully alert, his visible eye conveying urgent news. We have a situation, he announced without preamble. There's someone, or something, approaching the village. It bypassed all our sensor barriers without triggering a single alarm. The Anbu only noticed because birds stopped singing in its path. Naruto slid off the examination table, instantly alert. Hostile. Unknown. But whatever it is, it's heading straight for this building. Kakashi's gaze shifted to the strange markings on Naruto's skin. And judging by the timing, I suspect it might be connected to your condition. As if in response to Kakashi's words, another surge of purple energy emanated from Naruto's body. This time, however, instead of causing pain, it seemed to resonate with something in the distance, like two tuning forks finding the same frequency. It's coming for me, Naruto realized. His voice strangely calm. He pulled on his black and orange jacket, wincing as the mysterious energy continued to pulse beneath his skin. Let's meet it head on. The entity waited in the center of Konoha's main square, seemingly unconcerned by the ring of elite Anbu surrounding it at a cautious distance. Civilians had been evacuated from the area, leaving an eerie stillness broken only by the occasional flutter of Anbu cloaks in the morning breeze. Naruto approached with Kakashi and Tsunade flanking him, his senses heightened to supernatural levels. He could feel the strange presence before he saw it, a being of immense power, yet radiating no killing intent whatsoever. As they rounded the corner, Naruto stopped short. Standing in the square was a tall, Ender humanoid with pale blue skin and elaborate white hair styled upward in a distinctive fashion. He carried a long staff topped with a floating orb and wore ornate robes that seemed to shimmer with otherworldly light. Despite his alien appearance, his demeanor was perfectly composed, almost pleasantly casual. "Ah, there you are," the being spoke, his voice melodious and refined. "You're rather difficult to locate across dimensions. You know, most inconvenient." Kakashi stepped forward, positioning himself slightly ahead of Naruto. "I am Kakashi Hatake, 6th Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. Identify yourself and state your purpose." The blue-skinned visitor bowed with elegant precision. "My name is Whis, attendant to Lord Beerus, god of destruction. I've come regarding a matter of cosmic significance." His gaze shifted to Naruto, eyes widening slightly. "Oh my, the awakening is further along than I anticipated." "Awakening," Naruto repeated, stepping forward despite Tsunade's warning hand. The purple energy beneath his skin pulsed stronger in Whis' presence. "You know what's happening to me." "Indeed I do." Whis smiled, tapping his staff once on the ground. The surrounding area red momentarily as a barrier formed around them. "This is a private matter. I've created a temporal bubble where we can speak freely." "A temporal?" Tsunade began, alarmed. "A localized manipulation of time and space," Whis explained casually, as if discussing the weather. "Nothing to concern yourselves with. Now, to the matter at hand." He turned his full attention to Naruto. "You, young man, are experiencing the awakening of your divine heritage." Naruto stared at him. "Divine heritage? What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your father, of course." Whis tilted his head. "Your real father, Lord Beerus, god of destruction and my employer for the past few million years." A stunned silence fell over the group. Kakashi recovered first, his analytical mind already connecting dots. "That's impossible. We know who Naruto's father was." "Ah, you're referring to Minato Namikaze." Whis nodded. "A remarkable mortal, Certainly, who raised Naruto as his own. But I'm afraid the biological truth is more complicated. Naruto's fists clenched at his sides. My father was the fourth Hokage. I've met him. His chakra was sealed inside me. And what a clever safeguard that was, Whis agreed. Minato Namikaze sensed the divine energy within you even as an infant. The Nine Tails sealing served a dual purpose, containing both the tailed beast and suppressing your awakening until you were mature enough to handle it. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. You're claiming a god impregnated Kushina Uzumaki. Not precisely, Whis replied. Lord Beerus visited this dimension approximately 22 years ago. During one of his periodic inspections, he encountered a remarkable red-haired warrior woman who impressed him with her ferocity, unusual enough that he temporarily assumed a more compatible form. Their encounter resulted in you, Naruto. This is insane, Naruto muttered, though the energy pulsing through his veins seemed to respond to Whis's words. If what you're saying is true, where has this god been my entire life? Quote, gods of destruction don't typically concern themselves with offspring, Whis said, his tone gentler now. Lord Beerus returned to his duties, unaware of the consequences. When Kushina later married Minato, he accepted you as his own. Convenient, Naruto growled, a flicker of purple energy escaping his control. Whis observed the display with professional interest. Your powers are manifesting rapidly now. Without proper training, you could destroy this entire planet in an unguarded moment. Is that a threat? Kakashi asked quietly, his hand shifting subtly toward his weapon's pouch. Merely a statement of fact, Whis replied. Divine energy, particularly destruction energy, requires precise control. I've come to offer training, before accidents occur. As if on cue, Naruto felt another surge building within him, stronger than before. He gritted his teeth, trying to contain it, but the power pushed against his restraint like a tsunami against a paper wall. I can't, he gasped. Dropping to one knee, everyone back, Whis commanded, suddenly all business. He moved with impossible speed, tapping his staff to expand the temporal bubble as Naruto's control finally shattered. Purple energy erupted skyward in a pillar of light, carving through clouds and atmosphere alike. Where the beam touched, matter simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from reality itself. After several heart-stopping seconds, the energy dissipated, leaving Naruto panting on hands and knees in the center of a perfectly circular crater. Above them, a clean hole punctured the clouds, revealing the deep blue of the upper atmosphere. In the ringing silence that followed, Whis spoke quietly. That, I believe, makes my point rather effectively. The emergency Council meeting in the Hokage's office was tense. Naruto sat apart from the others, still shaken by the destructive display of power he couldn't control. The crater in the town square had been cordoned off, its perfect edges defying explanation by conventional physics. This power is not chakra, Whis explained to the assembled shinobi leaders. It's Hakai, destruction energy. The fundamental force, wielded by gods of destruction to maintain cosmic balance. By destroying things, Shikamaru asked skeptically. Precisely. Whis nodded approvingly. Creation and destruction exist in necessary equilibrium. Without destruction, creation stagnates. Lord Beerus's role is to ensure that balance across Universe 7. And you're saying Naruto has inherited this destruction power. Kakashi's visible. I hadn't left Naruto since they'd entered the room. In part, Whis confirmed. Though his mortal heritage makes him unique. A true hybrid of divine and human, unprecedented in cosmic history. Naruto finally looked up. If I don't learn to control this power. Best case scenario, accidental destruction of your planet. Whis's casual tone belied the severity of his words. Worst case, cascading, dimensional collapse affecting multiple universes. Tsunade slammed her hand on the table. Then teach him. If you came all this way, you must have a solution. Indeed I do. Whis turned to Naruto. You must come with me to Lord Beerus's world to begin your training. There, your power outbursts won't threaten innocent lives. Leave Earth. Naruto looked around at the faces of his friends and mentors, the people who defined his world. For how long? Time flows differently between dimensions, Whis said. What might be months in divine realms could be mere weeks here. But the training cannot wait. Already your energy signature is causing dimensional fluctuations. As if to illustrate his point, The air in the office shimmered momentarily, gravity fluctuating enough to send scrolls floating from Kakashi's desk before settling again. See, Whis pointed with his staff. That will only worsen. Naruto stood, decision made. I need to understand what's happening to me, and I won't put the village at risk. He turned to Kakashi. With your permission, Hokage-sama. Kakashi nodded slowly. Consider this an S-rank mission, Naruto. Learn to control this power and return to us. I'll need 24 hours to prepare. Naruto told Whis. There are people I need to speak with before I leave. Very well, Whis agreed. Though I recommend avoiding emotional extremes until then. Feeling. S10 to trigger divine energy fluctuations in novices. Naruto gave a humorless laugh. I'll do my best. Kurama's massive form lay curled within the mindscape Naruto had created over years of cooperation. The nine tails opened one enormous eye as Naruto approached, his expression uncharacteristically solemn. So, the fox rumbled, he finally came for you. Naruto stopped short. You knew. All this time. You knew I wasn't fully human. I suspected, Kurama admitted, shifting to face Naruto directly. When I was first sealed inside you, I sensed an energy that didn't belong, something even older than myself. I thought it was residual power from your mother's Uzumaki lineage, but over time. Over time what? Naruto demanded. Over time I realized it was something beyond this world entirely. Kurama's tail swished thoughtfully. I've existed since the Sage of Six Paths walked the earth, Naruto. In all those centuries, I've encountered beings from beyond our realm only once before. When? Long ago. Before human villages existed. A purple cat-like entity appeared from nowhere, sampled our world's ramen, declared it marginally acceptable, and vanished again. Kurama's massive teeth showed in what might have been a grim smile. His power was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Not chakra, but something that could erase existence itself. Beerus, Naruto whispered. So that's his name. Kurama nodded. When I felt echoes of that same energy within you, I contained it. Used my own chakra to mask it, even from you. Why? Self-preservation. Initially, the fox admitted. Quote, divine energy is anathema to beings like myself. Later, it was protection. You weren't ready for such power. Naruto sank down, sitting cross-legged before the massive fox. And now you have no choice. Kurama's voice held rare gentleness. The power is awakening regardless of my interference. You must learn to control it, or it will consume you. Will you help me? The nine tails considered this. My chakra and this divine energy don't naturally mix. But perhaps a new kind of harmony is possible. I will try, Kit. Naruto placed a hand against the massive fox's fur. Thank you, Kurama. Don't thank me yet, the fox growled. Meeting your divine father may not be the reunion you're hoping for. Gods rarely make loving parents. The following morning, a small group gathered at Konoha's main gate. Naruto had spent the night saying private goodbyes to his closest friends, explaining as much as he understood of the situation. Now, packed for a journey to another dimension, he faced his mentors one last time. Remember your training, Kakashi said, clasping Naruto's shoulder. Different power, same principles. Center yourself. Focus. Tsunade handed him a specially designed medical kit. I've included soldier pills designed to stabilize chakra fluctuations. They might help with the divine energy too. Naruto nodded, throat tight with emotion. I'll come back stronger. I promise. You always do. Tsunade replied with a sad smile. A subtle throat clearing announced Whis' arrival. The divine attendant approached with his customary grace, staff in hand. Are you prepared for departure? He asked. As ready as I'll ever be. Naruto shouldered his pack. How exactly do we travel between dimensions? Whis smiled mysteriously. Like this. He tapped his staff once on the ground. And a column of light engulfed them both. Naruto felt his body become weightless, molecules seeming to disassemble and reassemble in rapid sequence. The sensation was nothing like an transportation jutsu he'd experienced. This was fundamental restructuring of reality itself. Colors blurred around them as they traveled through what appeared to be a tunnel of shifting light. Despite the disorientation, Naruto maintained enough awareness to realize they were moving at impossible speeds through the fabric of multiple dimensions. Fascinating reaction, Whis commented, noticing Naruto's wide eyes. Most mortals become unconscious during their first interdimensional journey. I've been inside a tailed beast, fought in a war across multiple dimensions, and apparently I'm half god, Naruto replied, surprising himself with a strained laugh. This isn't even the strangest thing that's happened this week. Whis smiled appreciatively. You have your father's adaptability, at least. The light tunnel suddenly expanded, and Naruto felt gravity reassert itself as they materialized on solid ground. He staggered slightly, then froze as he took in their surroundings. They stood on a tiny planet, so small he could see its curvature in all directions. A single winding path led to a magnificent Egyptian-style pyramid topped with an enormous tree. Strange fish-like creatures swam through the air itself, and the gravity. The gravity was intense beyond anything Naruto had ever experienced. Welcome, Whis announced cheerfully, to the realm of Lord Beerus, god of destruction. Naruto took a single step forward and immediately crashed to his knees, his body feeling as though it weighed tons. What is this? The gravity here is approximately 10 times that of Earth, Whis explained. A security measure, among other things. Most visitors cannot move at all. Gritting his teeth, Naruto forced himself to stand, drawing on both his chakra and the newly awakened energy within him for support. Each movement required enormous effort, but he refused to remain on his knees. Impressive, said a new voice, languid, vaguely feline, and dripping with casual arrogance. At least he's not completely pathetic. Naruto looked up to see a thin, purple humanoid cat descending from the palace. He wore Egyptian-style garments and golden jewelry, his long tail swishing lazily behind him. Despite his unimposing physique, an aura of absolute destructive potential surrounded him, power so vast it made Naruto's breath catch in his throat. Lord Beerus, Whis greeted with a respectful nod. May I present Naruto Uzumaki of Earth, your son. Beerus landed before them, yellow eyes narrowed as he circled Naruto with predatory assessment. He has some of my markings when the power manifests, I see. The whiskers are new, though, a side effect of the 9 tails, I presume. You know about Kurama, Naruto managed, still struggling against the crushing gravity. I know everything about the world I visited. Beerus replied dismissively. Tailed beasts, shinobi, chakra, primitive but interesting constructs. Your mother was particularly fascinating, for a mortal. A surge of protective anger gave Naruto sudden strength. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. And the man who raised me, my real father in every way that matters, was Minato Namikaze. Beerus's eyes narrowed dangerously. Watch your tone, boy. Gods of destruction don't tolerate disrespect, even from their offspring. Lord Beerus, Whis intervened smoothly, perhaps we might discuss training arrangements over breakfast. The chef has prepared an Earth-style ramen that I believe you'll find superior to your previous sampling. Beerus's ears perked up immediately. Ramen, the noodle soup. His attention completely diverted, he turned toward the palace. Very well. The boy can join us if he can make it to the dining hall without help. As Beerus strolled away, seemingly unaffected by the crushing gravity, Naruto glared at his retreating back. Is he always like that? He asked Whis through gritted teeth. Oh no, Whis replied cheerfully. Today he's in quite a good mood. He hasn't threatened to destroy anything yet. Naruto took another painful step forward, then another, each movement a battle against the planet's pull. Great, he muttered. Just great. The dining hall inside Beerus's pyramid defied earthly architecture, with impossible angles and materials that seemed to shift depending on the viewer's perspective. Naruto had managed the grueling walk through sheer determination, arriving sweat-soaked but upright. Beerus lounged at the head of a massive table covered with exotic dishes, many of which Naruto couldn't identify. The god of destruction delicately sampled a bowl of ramen, his expression contemplative. The broth is properly balanced this time. Much better than that watery concoction I tried on Earth. You obviously didn't visit Ichiraku's, Naruto said, carefully lowering himself onto a floating cushion. The gravity inside seemed marginally less crushing, allowing him to move with painful deliberation. Ichiraku. Beerus's ear twitched with interest. Is their ramen exceptional by Earth standards? The best in the universe, Naruto stated with absolute conviction. Beerus snorted. Unlikely. You've experienced precisely one planet in one universe. There are 12 universes, each containing countless worlds with their own culinary traditions. Still doesn't change the fact that Ichiraku's is the best, Naruto insisted, reaching for his own bowl with trembling arms. A flicker of amusement crossed Beerus's features. Perhaps I should destroy this Ichiraku's and see if you maintain such loyalty. Naruto's chopsticks snapped in his suddenly clenched fist. Phew! RPLE energy crackled around him as his eyes flashed violet. Touch Ichiraku's, and God or not, I'll find a way to stop you. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees as Beerus set down his own chopsticks. Divine energy, far more controlled than Naruto's, rippled through the air. You threaten me, in my own realm. Beerus's voice remained soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. Perhaps you need a demonstration of the gap between us. Lord Beerus, Whis interrupted, tapping his staff lightly on the floor. While I appreciate the educational opportunity this presents, perhaps we might postpone destruction lessons until after the meal. The souffle is particularly time-sensitive today. For a tense moment, Beerus maintained his threatening posture. Then, abruptly, he relaxed and reached for his tea. Fine, but the boy needs to understand his place in the cosmic hierarchy. I understand exactly where I stand, Naruto replied, the purple energy still dancing across his skin. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Whatever divine blood I might have doesn't change who I am or what I stand for. Rather than anger, Beerus's expression showed a flash of something almost like approval before settling back into imperious boredom. HMPH. We'll see how long that mortal pride lasts during training. He turned to Whis. Speaking of which, I assume you'll handle his instruction. Indeed, Whis confirmed. I've already designed a regimen suited to his unique constitution. We'll begin with basic energy control, then progress to spatial manipulation. And eventually destruction techniques, if he proves capable. I'll manage, Naruto said with quiet determination. Beerus studied him over the rim of his teacup. Perhaps you will. You certainly inherited my stubbornness, if nothing else. He set down his cup with finality. Very well, Whis. Train the boy. I'll evaluate his progress in 3 months. 3 months? Naruto questioned. Divine time, Whis clarified. Approximately 3 weeks in Earth reckoning. Beerus stood, stretching languidly. Don't disappoint me, boy. Half-breed or not, you carry divine blood. Failure would reflect poorly on me. Without waiting for a response, he vanished, moving so quickly Naruto's eyes couldn't track the movement. When they were alone, Naruto released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He was seriously going to destroy me over a ramen comment, wasn't he? Oh, most definitely, Whis replied cheerfully, helping himself to a delicate dessert. Lord Beerus has destroyed planets for far less. The fact that you're still here is actually quite promising. How is that promising? It means he sees potential in you. Whis smiled enigmatically. Now finish your meal. Training begins at dawn, and you'll need every ounce of strength you can muster. Dawn on Beerus's world brought no conventional sunrise. Instead, the ambient light simply shifted from deep indigo to pale lavender, casting long shadows across the strange landscape. Naruto had spent a restless night in quarters that constantly rearranged themselves according to his subconscious desires, a disorienting experience that left him alert but unsettled. Whis awaited him on a floating platform above the main pyramid, staff in hand. Ah, good morning. I trust you slept well. Not really, Naruto admitted, still struggling against the intense gravity as he climbed onto the platform. The room kept changing. Yes, divine architecture responds to divine energy, Whis explained. Another skill you'll need to master, controlling your influence on your surroundings. Naruto looked around at the impossible landscape stretching below them. So where do we start? Chakra control exercises. Ra is a mortal energy system, impressive for what it is, but fundamentally different from divine power. Whis tapped his staff, creating a floating diagram of swirling energies. What you call chakra is a combination of physical and spiritual energy channeled through a network evolved specifically for that purpose. Divine energy, particularly destruction energy, exists at a more fundamental level of reality. Meaning it doesn't destroy things in the conventional sense, it erases them from existence. No debris, no aftermath, simply, absence. Whis pointed to the purple energy still, occasionally flickering across Naruto's skin. That power, uncontrolled, could erase entire star systems with a thought. Naruto swallowed hard. So how do I control it? The same way one controls an why overwhelming force. Through understanding, respect, and practice. Whis pointed to a series of massive cube-shaped objects floating in the distance. Those training blocks are composed of ultra-dense material capable of withstanding significant divine energy. Your first task is simple. Channel your power consciously rather than reactively. How? By finding the source within yourself. Whis positioned himself behind Naruto. Close your eyes. Ignore your chakra pathways. They're irrelevant for this exercise. Instead, feel for the oldest energy within you, the power that existed before you were born. Naruto closed his eyes, filtering out the familiar rush of chakra and the distinctive presence of Kurama. Beyond them, at the very core of his being, he sensed something else, a wellspring of energy unlike anything he'd encountered before. Ancient, primordial, absolute. I feel it, he whispered. It's enormous. That is your birthright, Whis said quietly. Now, draw upon it, not with need or emotion, but with will alone. Quote, Naruto reached for the energy, attempting to channel it as he would chakra. Immediately, purple power erupted around him, wild and uncontrolled. No, Whis corrected, unperturbed by the display. You're using chakra techniques. Divine energy doesn't flow through pathways, it simply is. Don't direct it, become it. Naruto tried again, this time surrendering his usual control methods. Instead of forcing the power through familiar channels, he allowed himself to resonate with it, becoming a conduit rather than a controller. Slowly, the chaotic flares stabilized, forming a steady aura of purple energy around his body. Unlike his chakra cloak, this energy didn't extend from him. It existed simultaneous with him, as if he and the power were one entity. Excellent, Whis approved. Now, direct your awareness toward the nearest training block. Don't point or gesture, simply extend your consciousness toward it. Naruto focused on one of the floating cubes, maintaining the perfect resonance he'd established with the divine energy. As his awareness touched the cube, he felt an immediate connection, as if the object had become an extension of himself. Now, Whis instructed, erase. The concept was alien to Naruto's understanding of ninjutsu, where techniques destroyed through impact, element, or transformation. Erasure was something altogether different. Not changing matter but removing its very existence from reality's equation. Focusing on that concept, Naruto willed a portion of the cube to simply stop being. A perfect spherical section of the cube vanished, leaving a hollow absence more profound than any physical hole. The edges were impossibly precise, as if that piece of reality had never existed at all. I did it, Naruto breathed, opening his eyes to see his handiwork. A promising start, Whis agreed. Though your control needs refinement. The erasure should have been complete, not partial. I was being cautious, Naruto admitted. Caution is wise, Whis acknowledged, but hesitation creates vulnerability. Divine power responds to absolute conviction. Now, let's try again, this time with movement incorporated. For hours, Naruto practiced channeling and directing the divine energy, learning to maintain control while performing increasingly complex maneuvers. By midday, he could sustain a steady aura while executing basic taijutsu forms. Though the crushing gravity made each movement a supreme effort. Your progress is remarkable for a half-divine being, Whis noted as they paused for refreshment. Most new destroyer gods require decades to achieve this level of basic control. I've had practice learning difficult techniques quickly, Naruto replied, thinking of the shadow clone training method he'd perfected over years of shinobi training. A thought struck him. Actually, would shadow clones work with divine energy? Whis considered this an interesting question. Clone techniques using chakra create tempo. Rare duplicates with shared consciousness, correct? Theoretically, divine energy could accomplish something similar, though with greater reality-altering implications. Let me try, Naruto suggested, forming the familiar hand sign before remembering Whis' earlier instruction. Or, without the hand signs, I guess. He focused inward, finding the resonance with his divine power, then willed it to create multiple instances of himself. not chakra constructs but actual divisions of his divine essence. The result was both familiar and entirely new. 3 perfect duplicates shimmered into existence beside him. But unlike his shadow clones, these seemed more substantial, as if each contained an equal portion of his divine nature. Fascinating, Whis murmured, examining one of the duplicates with his staff. You've actually divided your divine essence equally among 4 bodies. I've never seen this application before. Naruto experimentally reached out mentally to the duplicates and found the familiar shared consciousness of his shadow clone technique, but with a new dimension. Not only could he see through their eyes, but he could feel the divine energy flowing through each of them independently. This could revolutionize my training, he realized aloud. If each clone can practice separately, you could potentially compress years of divine training into months, Whis finished. Genuine excitement in his usually composed voice. Remarkable innovation, Naruto. Perhaps there's something to be said for your hybrid nature after all. The duplicates dispersed with Naruto's thought, their divine essence reintegrating with his own, bringing with it the experiences and muscle memory they'd accumulated even in their brief existence. Let's continue, Naruto said with renewed determination. I want to try something more advanced. Whis raised an eyebrow. Oh, what did you have in mind? Naruto looked toward the furthest training block, floating at the edge of visibility. Precision at a distance. If I'm going to master this power, I need to control it beyond my immediate surroundings. A small smile played at Whis's lips. Very well. Though I warn you, spatial manipulation requires significantly more finesse than raw destruction. I'll manage, Naruto replied, his eyes shifting to their violet hue as he reconnected with his divine heritage. After all, apparently it's in my blood. As the strange non-sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting Beerus's world in deepening shades of purple, Naruto continued his training, determined to master the divine power Awa. Kenning within him before it mastered him. Chapter 2. Between Realms. The dimensional tunnel collapsed behind Naruto as he materialized at the exact spot where he'd left Konoha 3 weeks earlier. Dawn painted the Hokage monument in gold and amber, the stone faces seemingly welcoming him home. 3 months had passed in Beerus's realm, but Whis had returned him precisely when promised, though Naruto himself had changed far more than the unchanged village before him. He adjusted the new weight around his neck, a restraint collar Whis had fashioned from divine metal. It didn't block his powers but dampened their ambient effects on the surrounding reality. Without it, Naruto's mere presence might cause unpredictable distortions in the mortal realm. I guess some things never change, he murmured, inhaling deeply. The familiar scents of Konoha, forest pines, market spices, and the distant aroma of Ichiraku's morning preparations grounded him after months in the alien environment of Beerus's world. What did change was how people reacted to his return. The guards at the gate stiffened as he approached, their chakra signatures flickering with instinctive alarm. They bowed respectfully, but Naruto didn't miss how they maintained additional distance, or how their eyes lingered on the strange collar at his throat. Welcome back, Naruto-sama, one guard said, the honorific new and uncomfortable. Just Naruto is fine, he replied with a deliberate grin, trying to put them at ease. As Kakashi-sensei in the Hokage Tower? Yes, sir. He asked to be notified immediately upon your return. Naruto nodded, unsurprised. Though he'd learned to contain most of his divine energy, he couldn't completely mask his transformed nature. Sensitive sensors would detect something fundamentally different about him, something beyond human. As he walked through the village streets, the pattern repeated. Civilians smiled and greeted him warmly as always, but shinobi reacted with subtle wariness, an instinctive response to power beyond their comprehension. By the time he reached the Hokage Tower, Naruto had counted 17 different Anbu operatives tracking his movements across rooftops. Well, this is going to be interesting, he muttered as he climbed the tower stairs. Kakashi's visible eye widened slightly as Naruto entered his office, the only indication of surprise from the typically unflappable Hokage. You look different, Kakashi observed, setting aside a stack of mission reports. It was an understatement. While Naruto's basic features remained unchanged, his time in Divine Tra. Eining had transformed him subtly but fundamentally. He stood taller, his movements exhibiting an unconscious grace that hadn't existed before. The whisker marks on his cheeks now had a purple tinge when caught in certain light. And his eyes occasionally shifted from azure blue to violet when his concentration wavered. Training with Whis was intense, Naruto replied with characteristic understatement, taking a seat across from his former teacher. But effective. So I see. Kakashi's gaze lingered on the ornate collar. And that is a suppression device. Whis calls it a reality anchor. Without it, my divine energy would cause disturbances. Like the crater in the town square. Kakashi asked dryly. Naruto winced. Worse, potentially. Divine energy doesn't just destroy, it can warp reality itself. Kakashi steepled his fingers, his expression turning serious. I've received 17 reports from Sensor-type shinobi since you entered the village gates 20 minutes ago. They all say the same thing. Your chakra signature has become unrecognizable. Not surprising. My chakra has merged with Hokage energy, they're becoming inseparable. Naruto created a small Rasengan in his palm. The familiar blue sphere now threaded with purple energy. Same techniques, different foundation. Kakashi studied the modified jutsu with academic interest. Can you still access Nine Tails chakra? Yes. Though Kurama and I had to renegotiate our partnership. Naruto dismissed the Rasengan with a thought. Divine energy is toxic to tailed beasts in its raw form. We've found a workaround, but it's complicated. I imagine many things are complicated now. Kakashi sighed, pushing a folder across the desk. Including international relations. Naruto flipped open the folder to find int. Legends reports from neighboring nations. They've noticed something's changed. The hidden stone has doubled patrols along our borders. The cloud has recalled 3 specialized sensor squads from ongoing missions. And the sand. Kakashi paused meaningfully. What about the sand? Naruto asked, tension creeping into his voice. They're sending an ambassador to investigate reports of cosmic disturbances originating from Konoha. Ambassador Temari arrives tomorrow. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Temari, not Gaara himself. The Kazekage thought sending his sister would appear less provocative than coming personally. Though I suspect he also trusts her judgment implicitly when it comes to potential threats. I'm not a threat, Naruto said automatically, then grimaced as the restraint collar pulsed with suppressed energy. At least, not intentionally. Kakashi's eye crinkled in what might have been sympathy. Welcome to the world of political perception, Naruto. It doesn't matter why you intend. Only what others believe you might do. He leaned forward. Now, tell me everything you learned. Leave nothing out. Naruto finished his report as afternoon shadows lengthened across the Hokage's office. He'd explained the fundamentals of divine energy, described Beerus's realm, and outlined the training he'd undergone with Whis. Throughout, Kakashi had listened intently, interrupting on Lee for clarification on technical points. So this god of destruction, your biological father, is responsible for maintaining cosmic balance by selectively destroying planets. Kakashi summarized, his tone carefully neutral. Worlds, solar systems, sometimes entire galaxies, Naruto confirmed. Whis says creation and destruction exist in necessary equilibrium. Without destruction, creation would eventually stagnate and collapse under its own weight. And you've inherited this destruction power. It wasn't a question. Naruto nodded slowly. Some portion of it, yes. Combined with my human heritage and shinobi training. It's created something unique. Whis seemed genuinely surprised by some of the applications I developed. Such as divine shadow clones, for one. Apparently, no god of destruction had ever thought to divide their divine essence that way. Naruto smiled slightly. 3 months of training with 4 bodies simultaneously compressed a year's worth of progress into weeks. Impressive, Kakashi acknowledged. Though I'm more concerned with how this affects your position here. The other nations will see you as either a threat or an asset to be controlled. I'm still a shinobi of the leaf. Naruto said firmly. That hasn't changed, hasn't it? Kakashi asked quietly. You're now part god, Naruto, connected to cosmic forces beyond our world. Can you honestly say your priorities haven't shifted? The question hit harder than Naruto expected. During his training, Whis had spoken often about perspective, how divine beings necessarily viewed mortal concerns differently. He'd found himself increasingly thinking on larger scales, centuries rather than years, civilizations rather than villages. My loyalty hasn't changed, Naruto said finally. But, I can't deny that my perspective has. I see connections now. Between dimensions, between choices and consequences across vast distances. It's like suddenly gaining 1,000 new senses all at once. Kakashi nodded, apparently satisfied with the honest response. Then we'll navigate this together. Starting with Ambassador Temari's visit tomorrow. He stood, signaling the meeting's end. Get some rest, Naruto. USPECT diplomatic challenges will be just as demanding as divine training. Ichiraku ramen hadn't changed, a fact Naruto found immensely comforting as he slid onto a familiar stool that evening. The SM All restaurant represented everything he loved about the mortal realm. Simple pleasures, familiar rituals, connections forged through shared experiences rather than cosmic destiny. Naruto, Tsuki's weathered face split into a genuine smile. Back from your mission. The usual, please, Naruto replied, grateful for the normalcy. Extra large miso with chashu. Tsuki's practiced hands moved through. The familiar routine of preparing the ramen, seemingly oblivious to the subtle changes in his favorite customer. Ayame, however, paused in her work to study Naruto with narrowed eyes. Something's different about you, she decided. Leaning across the counter. New haircut, different clothes. Naruto chuckled. Something like that, just some personal growth. Well, whatever it is, it suits you, she declared. Returning to her tasks, the simple interaction eased some tension Naruto hadn't realized he'd been carrying. Maybe regular people wouldn't notice the changes in him, or wouldn't care if they did. Perhaps only those attuned to chakra and energy would sense the cosmic difference. His optimism lasted precisely until his ramen arrived. As Tsuki set the steaming bowl before him, the shop's newest patron entered, and immediately froze in the doorway. Hinata Hyuga stared at Naruto, her Byakugan activating instinctively at the unfamiliar energy signature. Her normally gentle eyes widened in shock, veins bulging around them as she processed what she was seeing. Naruto, she whispered, taking an unconscious step backward. What happened to you? The raw alarm in her voice drew attention from other patrons. Naruto felt their curious gazes, suddenly aware of how exposed he was in this public setting. It's a long story, he said quietly. I promise everything's okay. Hinata's Byakugan remained activated, her trained dojutsu unable to process the divine energy swirling within his chakra network. Your entire system it's not human anymore. A heavy silence fell across the small restaurant. Naruto felt a familiar pang, the childhood memory of being different, feared, isolated. He'd thought those days long behind him. Perhaps we could discuss this somewhere more private, he suggested, keeping his voice carefully level as the collar at his throat pulsed with suppressed energy. Hinata seemed to realize they'd become the center of attention. With visible effort, she deactivated her Byakugan and nodded. Of course, I'm sorry for reacting that way. It's fine, Naruto assured her, leaving payment for his untouched ramen. It's a shock, I know. As they left Ichiraku's together, Naruto felt the weight of stairs following them, a sensation he'd hoped never to experience again. The Hyuga compound gardens provided the privacy they needed. Cherry trees swayed gently in the evening breeze, creating a peaceful backdrop that contrasted sharply with the tension between them. Naruto finished explaining his divine parentage and training, carefully gauging Hinata's reactions. She'd listened without interruption, her expression shifting from shock to confusion to something approaching academic interest. So that's why your chakra appears completely transformed, she said finally. It's not just an alteration, it's fundamental integration with this divine energy. Yes, Whis calls it the awakening, my divine heritage asserting itself now that I've reached full maturity. Hinata nodded slowly, her analytical mind processing the implications. And the 9 tails. Kurama's still there, though our relationship has become more complicated. Divine energy is naturally toxic to tailed beasts, so we've had to create a sort of buffer zone within my consciousness. May I see? Hinata asked tentatively, gesturing toward her eyes. Naruto hesitated, then nodded. Just be prepared. It doesn't look like normal chakra. Hinata activated her Byakugan once more, this time prepared for what she would see. Her expression remained professionally composed as she studied the transformed energy system within him. It's beautiful, she said unexpectedly. Terrifying, but beautiful. Your chakra pathways have restructured themselves to accommodate this divine energy. And she pointed to his core, that's where they merge completely. Whis calls it the divine nexus. It's where human chakra and Hokage energy become something entirely new. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, her gaze returning to normal. You realize what this means, don't you? The Hyuga, the Uchiha, any clan with sensory abilities will see you as something fundamentally different now. I know, Naruto acknowledged quietly. I'm still adjusting to it myself. A comfortable silence fell between them. Years ago, Hinata might have filled this moment with decal orations of unwavering faith or emotional reassurance. Now, as the head of Hyuga clan intelligence, she approached the situation with measured pragmatism. The village will stand with you, she said finally. Whatever you've become, you're still Naruto Uzumaki to us. But the other nations, she trailed off, her political mind already calculating potential reactions. Starting with Suna's ambassador tomorrow, Naruto finished for her. Temari, Hinata nodded. She's perceptive and direct. If she feels you pose a threat to regional stability, she won't hesitate to say so. I don't blame her. In her position, I'd be concerned too. Hinata studied him with new awareness. You've changed in more than just energy, haven't you? The old Naruto would be insisting that everyone should just trust him. Naruto smiled ruefully. 3 months with Whis changes your perspective. He's lived for millions of years, Hinata. Watched civilizations rise and fall, planets form and die. It makes mortal concerns seem. He searched for the right word, transient. But not unimportant, she suggested. No, he agreed firmly. Different scale, but not less valuable. That's what Whis couldn't understand, why I insisted on returning. Gods view mortal lives as fleeting moments, but those moments matter. They're what make life worth living. Hinata smiled then, recognizing the core of the Naruto she'd always known. That perspective might be exactly what's needed when dealing with Temari tomorrow. She respects strength, but also authenticity. Let's hope so, Naruto said, rising from the garden bench. Because I have a feeling diplomatic challenges are just beginning. Dawn brought clear skies and fresh tensions to Konoha. Naruto stood beside Kakashi at the village gates, awaiting the Suna delegation. Word of his return, and transformation, had spread quickly through shinobi circles overnight. Now, curious villagers gathered at a respectful distance, eager to glimpse both the visiting ambassador and their changed hero. Remember, Kakashi murmured, this is as much about perception as reality. Temari will be evaluating not just your powers, but how you handle them. I understand, Naruto replied, unconsciously adjusting the collar at his throat. The lookout signal announced the delegation's approach. Minutes later, a small group of sand shinobi appeared on the forest path, led by a familiar figure. Temari had changed little in the years since the war, still carrying her massive battle fan, her blonde hair styled in 4 distinctive ponytails. What had evolved was her presence. She now moved with the confident authority of someone accustomed to navigating complex political landscapes. As the group entered the village proper, Temari's sharp teal eyes immediately found Naruto. Her stride faltered almost imperceptibly, a reaction so subtle only those watching for it would notice. Her sensory abilities, while not as specialized as a Hyuga's, were clearly detecting something unusual about him. Hokage-sama, she greeted Kakashi formally, bowing with precise respect. Thank you for receiving our delegation on such short notice. Ambassador Temari, Kakashi returned the bow. Konoha welcomes Suna's representatives. I trust your journey was uneventful. Mostly, she replied, her gaze sliding back to Naruto. Though we did notice some unusual atmospheric disturbances as we approached your borders. Perhaps we should discuss such matters in more appropriate settings, Kakashi suggested smoothly. We've prepared accommodations for your delegation, and the Hokage T.O.R. is available for our diplomatic discussions. Temari nodded, her diplomatic training evident in her composed expression. Of course, though I would appreciate a private word with Naruto before formal meetings begin. Kakashi glanced at Naruto, who gave a slight nod. That can be arranged. Perhaps a tour of our eastern gardens while your team settles in. Perfect, Temari agreed. The practiced diplomatic dance completed. The groups separated, Suna delegates following their assigned guides to guest quarters while Kakashi returned to the Hokage Tower. Naruto and Temari walked in silence toward the gardens, both acutely aware of the curious eyes following their progress. Once safely within the secluded paths of Konoha's eastern gardens, Temari dropped all pretense. "What the hell happened to you?" she demanded, turning to face him directly. "Your chakra signature is completely altered." Gaara felt the change from across the continent. Naruto sighed. "It's a complicated story. I've got time," she replied, crossing her arms. And diplomatic immunity. Despite the tension, Naruto found himself smiling at her directness. Unlike others who approached him with newfound caution, Temari maintained her characteristic bluntness. It was refreshing. The short version: "I discovered my biological father is actually a deity from another dimension called a god of destruction. I've spent last 3 weeks, 3 months in his realm, learning to control the divine energy that's awakened inside me." Temari stared at him, her expression cycling through disbelief, analysis, and reluctant acceptance. "You're serious?" "Completely." "Prove it," she challenged. "Show me something no shinobi could do." Naruto considered his options, conscious of the restraint collar's steady pulse against his throat. Most demonstrations of Hokage energy would be too destructive for this setting. Instead, he opted for a subtler approach. "See that dead flower?" He nodded toward a withered rose on a nearby bush. Concentrating carefully, he extended a thread of pure divine energy, not to destroy, but to manipulate time itself around the blossom. The flower reversed its decay, petals unfurling in color, returning as it moved backward through its natural life cycle to perfect bloom. Then, just as smoothly, it accelerated forward again, withering and decaying until nothing remained but dust that blew away in the breeze. "Time manipulation," Naruto explained quietly, "a minor application of divine energy." Temari's composure cracked slightly, genuine awe flickering across her features before professional diplomacy reasserted itself. "That's impossible. Even the most advanced space-time ninjutsu can't manipulate biological processes that precisely." "It's not ninjutsu," Naruto confirmed. "It's something else entirely." She studied him with new intensity, her tactical mind reassessing everything she knew about him. "Is this why the atmospheric disturbances have been centered on Konoha? Your awakening?" "Yes. Divine energy affects reality differently than chakra. Even with this suppression collar, I cause subtle distortions just by existing in this dimension now." Suppression collar. Her gaze fixed on the ornate band at his throat. "So without that, the effects would be worse. Potentially catastrophic," he admitted. "I'm still learning control." Temari paced a small circle, processing this information with remarkable composure. Finally, she stopped and faced him again. "This changes the entire strategic balance of the 5 great nations," she stated flatly. "A shinobi with divine power transcends all existing power structures." "I'm still a leaf shinobi," Naruto insisted. "My loyalties haven't changed, but your capabilities have." Temari's eyes narrowed shrewdly. "And perception matters in international relations. The other cage will see you as either an unprecedented threat or an asset to be controlled." "So I've been told," Naruto said dryly. Something unexpected happened then. Temari laughed, a short, genuine sound that seemed to surprise even her. "Only you, Naruto Uzumaki, could complicate international politics by becoming part god." Her unexpected humor broke the tension, and Naruto found himself chuckling in response. "Trust me, it wasn't my idea. Finding out Beerus as my biological father was as much a shock to me as anyone." "Beerus? The god of destruction is named Beerus?" Temari raised an eyebrow, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Sounds like a cat." "Actually, he does look remarkably feline," Naruto admitted, grinning. "Purple fur, bad temper, sleeps constantly, and obsessed with food, especially ramen. So that's where you get it from," she teased, momentarily setting aside diplomacy for genuine connection. Apparently divine beings can have surprisingly mortal appetites. Their shared laughter faded into comfortable silence as they continued walking through the garden paths. Naruto realized with surprise that Temari was the first person since his return who'd responded to his transformation with curiosity rather than fear or awe. Her pragmatic acceptance felt unexpectedly refreshing. "So what happens now?" she asked finally. Hat will you tell the official delegation? The truth, Naruto replied simply. As much of it as makes sense. Gaara deserves to know what's happening, as do the other Kage eventually. Temari nodded approvingly. Transparency is wise, though I suggest emphasizing the control aspects. The more you demonstrate mastery over these powers, the less threatening you'll appear. Political advice from the Sans ambassador. Should I be taking notes? She smirked. Consider it a professional courtesy. Besides, cosmic disasters are bad for everyone's economy. As they rounded a corner of the garden path, Naruto sensed a new presence approaching, one with an energy signature unlike anything he'd encountered before, neither fully human nor completely mechanical. Something between worlds, like himself but in an entirely different way. Someone's coming, he said quietly. Someone. Unusual. Temari's hand moved subtly toward her fan. Hostile. I don't think so. Just. Different. Moments later, a woman appeared on the path ahead of them. Tall and striking with magenta hair, she wore a modified laboratory coat over distinctive clothing that seemed to blend scientific practicality with elegant design. Her eyes, bright blue with rectangular pupils, fixed immediately on Naruto with undisguised scientific curiosity. Fascinating, she said by way of greeting, her voice pleasantly modulated. The energy signature is even more complex up close. Naruto and Temari exchanged glances. I'm sorry, Naruto said carefully, have we met? No, but your dimensional distortions have been registering on my instruments for weeks. The woman approached with the confident stride of someone accustomed to laboratory authority. I'm Drive, 21. Most people simply call me 21 or 21. Doctor, 21. Temari repeated skeptically. It's a designation, not a name, the woman clarified. I'm a synthetic biological construct, what some might call an android, though that term drastically oversimplifies my composition. Naruto sensed no deception from her, though her energy pattern was fascinatingly complex, layers of biological, mechanical, and something else entirely intertwined in a constantly shifting balance. You're not from around here, he observed. Perceptive, she acknowledged with a small smile. I'm from another dimensional plane entirely. Your recent emergence has created ripples across multiple realities. I followed them to their source, and bypassed all of Konoha's security barriers. Temari asked sharply, diplomatic courtesy giving way to security concerns. Interdimensional travel bypasses conventional spatial protections, 21 explained matter-of-factly. Though I did register my presence with your Hokage upon arrival, he granted me provisional research status, pending a meeting with the source of the disturbances. Her gaze returned to Naruto. Which would be you? Kakashi-sensei approved this, Naruto asked, surprised. After extensive verification of my non-hostile intent, yes. She produced an official-looking document bearing the Hokage's seal. I'm a scientist, not a warrior, though I'm capable of defending myself if necessary. Temari studied the authorization with narrowed eyes. This appears authentic. It is. 21 turned back to Naruto, her scientific curiosity evident. Your hybrid physiology is unprecedented in my dimensional studies. Divine energy integrated with human chakra and tailed beast essence, a biological impossibility made manifest. You can sense all that? Naruto asked, impressed despite his wariness. My sensory capabilities extend beyond conventional parameters. She gestured to her eyes. These aren't merely for aesthetics. I can perceive energy patterns across multiple dimensional frequencies. Naruto made a decision. Something about her straightforward scientific interest felt less threatening than the political and social complications he'd been navigating. I'm headed to a diplomatic meeting now. But perhaps we could speak later. I have questions about interdimensional travel myself. 21 nodded, her expression brightening with intellectual enthusiasm. Excellent. I have a temporary laboratory in your scientific division. Find me there when you're available. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh. And that suppression collar is interesting technology, but inefficient. I might be able to suggest improvements. With that, she departed as suddenly as she'd appeared, leaving Naruto and Temari staring after her. An android from another dimension, Temari said flatly. Why am I not surprised this is happening around you? Naruto shrugged helplessly. Apparently becoming part god attracts attention from across the multiverse. Multiverse, Temari repeated, shaking her head. 3 days ago, my biggest concern was water rights treaties between minor nations. Now I'm dealing with gods, androids, and multiversal politics. Welcome to my world, Naruto replied with a wry smile. Or worlds, plural, I suppose. Temari studied him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. You know, most men would be intimidated by this kind of power, or corrupted by it. You just seem inconvenienced. It's a lot to adjust to, he admitted. And yet you're still fundamentally Naruto, she observed. Slightly more cosmic, but still the same persistent, optimistic knucklehead at your core. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. Her smile held unexpected warmth. It's strangely reassuring that even gods can remain human where it counts. Before Naruto could respond to the unexpected sentiment, a messenger appeared with a summons from the Hokage Tower. The diplomatic meeting was about to begin. Duty calls, Temari said, reverting to her formal diplomatic persona. Shall we face the bureaucratic side of cosmic revelations? Together, they headed toward the Hokage Tower, both aware that the day's complications were only beginning. Diplomatic meeting proceeded with surprising smoothness, largely due to Temari's pragmatic approach. Rather than treating Naruto's transformation as a threat, she framed it as an opportunity for enhanced cooperation between nations. By the meeting's end, preliminary protocols had been established for information sharing about the dimensional disturbances, with Naruto agreeing to regular monitoring by sensor teams from both villages. As afternoon faded into evening, Naruto found himself drawn to the scientific division where 21 had established her temporary laboratory. Curious about both her origins and her unusual energy signature, he hoped she might provide insights into the multiverse that even Whis hadn't fully explained. The laboratory occupied what had previously been a storage facility, now transformed into a sophisticated research space filled with equipment unlike anything in Konoha's technological arsenal. 21 moved efficiently among holographic displays and complex instruments. Her movements precise and graceful. She looked up immediately when he entered. Perfect timing. I've just finished mapping the frequency pattern of your divine energy fluctuations. That's impressive, Naruto said, glancing at the three-dimensional model rotating above one workstation. It showed his energy signature as a complex, swirling pattern with distinct layers representing different power sources. What exactly does that tell you? That you're a biological impossibility, she replied matter-of-factly, adjusting the control to zoom in on the model. Divine energy and mortal chakra shouldn't be able to coexist within a single entity, the power differential is too extreme. Yet you've achieved a stable integration. Stable might be overstating it, Naruto admitted, touching the suppression collar. Hence this. 21 approached, studying the collar with clinical interest. May I? When he nodded, she lifted her hand toward the device without quite touching it. Fascinating design. It's not suppressing your power so much as anchoring your dimensional resonance. Whis, my teacher, said something similar. That without it, I'd cause reality distortions just by existing here. He's correct, though this particular design is rather crude. She returned to a workstation, pulling up schematics. I could improve it significantly. The current model dampens your abilities unnecessarily. Naruto raised an eyebrow. You're offering to help me. I'm a scientist. Your existence represents the most fascinating biophysical anomaly I've encountered in centuries of research. 21's expression softened slightly. Besides, dimensional stability benefits everyone, including myself. Centuries of research. You don't look that old. A complicated emotion flickered across her features. My physical form doesn't reflect my actual age. The cells that comprise my biological components have complex origins. What does that mean, exactly? 21 hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. My construction incorporated cellular material from multiple sources across different timelines and realities. Some components are fully mechanical, others entirely biological, and some exist in a quantum state between possibilities. That sounds complicated. An understatement, she agreed with unexpected humor. Imagine having dozens of different genetic memories and instincts competing for dominance within a single consciousness. My existence is a constant balancing act between disparate components that were never meant to coexist. Naruto studied her with new understanding. We're not so different, then. I've spent my life balancing human chakra with the Nine Tails power. Now I've added divine energy to the mix. Precisely why your case interests me, she acknowledged. We've both achieved integration of fundamentally incompatible elements. Though in my case, the balance occasionally slips. 21's expression darkened momentarily. Certain cellular components carry predatory instincts that can temporarily overwhelm my conscious control. When that happens, I become something else. I understand that better than most, Naruto said quietly. There was a time when the Nine Tails' influence could take over if my emotions became too intense. How did you resolve it? By stopping the fight against myself. To acknowledge all aspects of my nature, even the darkest parts, before I could truly achieve balance. 21 considered this with scientific thoroughness. An intriguing approach. My current method involves biochemical suppressants and consciousness partitioning, but your integrative strategy might offer alternatives. Their conversation continued well into the evening, shifting from technical discussions of dimensional physics to more philosophical questions about identity and self-determination. 21's analytical perspective provided insights Naruto hadn't considered, while his experiences with integrating disparate powers clearly fascinated her scientific mind. As their discussion wound down, 21 made an unexpected request. I'd like to continue studying your divine mortal integration, if you're amenable. It could benefit us both. My research might help improve your control, while your experiences might help my own integration challenges. I'd like that, Naruto agreed, realizing he'd found an unexpected connection with this interdimensional researcher. It's refreshing to discuss these changes with someone who sees them as interesting rather than terrifying. Fear is rarely a productive response to new phenomena, 21 replied with a small smile. Curiosity yields far better results. As Naruto left the laboratory, he reflected that 21's IQ perspective, being neither fully human nor machine, existing between conventional definitions, gave her insights others couldn't provide. Like himself, she navigated the boundaries between worlds, finding her own path where no established rules existed. The following days established a new rhythm in Naruto's life. Mornings were dedicated to diplomatic meetings with Temari and other village representatives, carefully explaining the nature of his transformation and establishing protocols for monitoring dimensional disturbances. Afternoons often found him in 21's laboratory, participating in research that benefited both his control and her understanding of multiversal physics. Evenings he devoted to personal training, refining the techniques Whis had taught him while adapting them to work alongside his shinobi abilities. A week after his return to Konoha, the first major dimensional incident occurred. It began with subtle signs, gravity fluctuations causing objects to momentarily float, clocks running at different speeds across the village, weather patterns shifting unnaturally from sunshine to snowfall within minutes. Naruto felt each distortion like a discordant note in reality's symphony, his divine senses now attuned to dimensional stability. Something's wrong, he told Kakashi during an early morning briefing. These aren't just residual effects from my energy anymore. Something else is happening. Before Kakashi could respond, 21 burst into the office, her usual composed demeanor replaced with urgent focus. Dimensional breach imminent, she announced without preamble. My instruments detect a major rift forming approximately 20 kilometers northeast of the village. Kakashi rose immediately. Nature of the threat, unknown, but the energy sign. A tour suggests interdimensional entities attempting to cross over. 21 turned to Naruto. Your divine energy may have weakened the barriers between dimensions, creating opportunity for breach. The Land of Iron, Naruto realized. That's where the rift is forming, isn't it? 21 nodded. The Samurai Nation. How did you know? I can feel it. Naruto closed his eyes, his senses extending beyond normal perception. Like a tear in fabric, reality coming apart at the seams. Kakashi made rapid decisions. I'll mobilize Anbu response teams. 21. What do we need to contain this breach? Conventional methods won't work against interdimensional intrusion, she replied. Our best option is Naruto. Divine energy can seal dimensional rifts if properly applied. I've never done anything like that before, Naruto warned. The theory is sound, 21 insisted. Divine energy exists across dimensional boundaries. You should be able to manipulate it to repair the breach. Should? Kakashi asked sharply. 93% probability of success, she clarified. The alternative is allowing unknown entities from other dimensions to enter our reality unchecked. I'll do it, Naruto decided. But I'll need help. Someone to manage conventional threats while I focus on the rift itself. I'll accompany you, Temari said from the doorway, her sudden appearance indicating she'd been monitoring the situation. Suna has a vested interest in dimensional stability, and my wind techniques can provide wide area coverage. 21 nodded. I should come as well. My sen. Source can track the breach patterns and guide the sealing process. Very well, Kakashi agreed. Naruto, you're in command of this mission. Depart immediately and provide regular updates. The diplomat. I see implications of this incident extend beyond Konoha's borders. As the team prepared to leave, Naruto faced an unexpected complication. Using his divine transportation abilities would be faster, but might exacerbate the dimensional instability. Conventional travel would be slower but safer. I have a solution, 21 offered, producing a small device from her laboratory coat. This dimension, AL stabilizer should allow controlled translocation without further damaging the barriers. Should? Temari asked, echoing Kakashi's earlier skepticism. 87% probability of success. 21 replied with scientific precision. I like those odds better than being too late, Naruto decided, accepting the device. Everyone stay close to me. With Temari and 21 positioned on either side, Naruto activated the stabilizer and channeled a careful measure of divine energy. Unlike Whis' smooth teleportation, this transition felt jagged and difficult, reality resisting their passage. After several disorienting moments, they materialized at the edge of the Land of Iron's territory, surrounded by snow-covered mountains. The dimensional rift was immediately visible, a jagged tear in the air itself. Pulsing with otherworldly energy, through the opening, shadowy figures could be seen moving in what appeared to be another world entirely. Around the rift, reality itself seemed unstable, snow fell upward. Rocks phased in and out of existence, and time visibly distorted. Extraordinary, 21 murmured, activating various scanning devices. A complete breach between parallel dimensions. Can Naruto seal it? Temari asked, her fan already drawn in preparation for potential threats. Yes, but the process will take time and complete concentration. 21 handed Naruto a small crystal device. This will help focus your divine energy at the correct frequency to repair the dimensional barriers. What about those? Temari nodded toward the shadowy figures moving closer to the rift from the other side. Interdimensional entities sensing the breach, 21 confirmed grimly. If they cross over, their molecular structure will stabilize in our reality, making them much harder to send back. Then we defend while Naruto works, Temari decided, taking a protective position. Naruto moved closer to the rift, feeling its chaotic energy pulling at his divine essence. Using the crystal focus 21 had provided, he began channeling carefully measured amounts of Hawkeye energy, not to destroy, but to restore balance between dimensions. The process proved extraordinarily difficult. Unlike Whis' controlled demonstrations, this required precise manipulation of energies that naturally resisted containment. Sweat beaded on Naruto's forehead despite the rigid mountain air as he meticulously worked to seal the tear one section at a time. Behind him, he heard Temari's battle fan deploy with a decisive snap. We've got company. 3 shadowy entities had slipped through the rift, their forms solidifying as they fully entered this dimension. They resembled humanoid insects, with chitinous exoskeletons and multiple limbs that moved with unsettling precision. Their eyes, dozens across each face, fixed immediately on Naruto, sensing his divine energy. They're drawn to your power. 21 called, her arm transforming into what appeared to be some kind of energy weapon. Keep working. We'll handle them. Temari's wind scythe technique slammed into the lead creature, sending it tumbling across the snowy landscape. Rather than damaging it, however, the attack seemed to merely inconvenience the being, which quickly regained its footing. Physical attacks have limited effect, 21 observed, firing precise energy blasts that proved somewhat more effective. Their molecular structure is still adapting to our dimension. More creatures emerged from the rift as Naruto struggled to seal it. The tear resisted his efforts, almost seeming to fight back with a will of its own. This wasn't merely a passive dimensional weakness, something on the other side was actively working to keep the passage open. There's some kind of intelligence directing this breach, he called to his companions. It's resisting the sealing. Work faster, Tamari shouted, now battling 5 of the creatures simultaneously. Her wind techniques created space but couldn't permanently disable the entities. More are coming through. 21 moved with unexpected combat efficiency, her form occasionally shifting between humanoid and something more monstrous as she engaged the creatures. My scans indicate the rift is expanding. Whatever's controlling it is gaining strength. Naruto redoubled his efforts, channeling more divine energy despite the risks. The suppression collar at his throat began to glow with the strain of containing power never meant for this dimension. If the collar failed, the resulting energy release might seal the rift, but could also create a dozen more. As the situation grew increasingly desperate, a new presence arrived, announced by a spatial distortion entirely different from the chaotic rift. The air shimmered elegantly, parting like a curtain to reveal a tall, slender figure with pale blue skin and white hair styled in an elaborate updo. My, what a mess you've gotten yourself into, Naruto, said a melodious female voice. Vados. Naruto recognized her immediately despite having met her only once during his training. The female angel, sister to Whis and attendant to the god of destruction of Universe 6, surveyed the scene with composed interest. Interdimensional breaches are becoming quite the problem lately. I was in the area and thought I might offer assistance. The area? Tamari questioned incredulously, dodging a creature's attack. You mean casually passing through dimensions? Something like that, Vados replied with a mysterious smile. Her staff tapped lightly on the ground, and all the interdimensional creatures froze in place. Now, Naruto, shall we seal this properly? With a graceful gesture, she created a complex pattern of energy that interlaced with Naruto's efforts. Where he had been struggling to force the rift closed, Vados approached it as a mathematical equation to be balanced. Under their combined efforts, the tear began to shrink systematically. Fascinating technique, 21 observed, her scientific curiosity overriding even the immediate danger. You're not forcing the dimensions apart, you're harmonizing their natural frequencies. Precisely, Vados acknowledged with approval. Brute force rarely succeeds with dimensional mechanics. One must understand the underlying patterns. Working together, Naruto and Vados completed the sealing process in minutes. As the final segment closed, the frozen creatures shimmered and vanished, returned to their home dimension by the re-establishment of natural barriers. With the immediate threat contained, Naruto turned to Vados with questions. Not that I'm ungrateful, but why are you here? I thought angels rarely involved themselves in mortal realm problems. Ordinarily, we don't, she agreed, her staff floating serenely beside her. However, these interdimensional disruptions have become more frequent and deliberate across multiple universes. When I sensed divine energy being used in Universe 7's Earth, I thought I should investigate. Deliberate, 21 asked sharply, you're suggesting intelligent direction behind these breaches. Indeed. Vados's expression turned serious. Someone, or something, is systematically testing the boundaries between dimensions. This incident was merely one of dozens occurring across the multiverse. Tamari, who had been silently processing the appearance of yet another divine being, finally spoke. Is Konoha being specifically targeted because of Naruto? Perhaps, Vados acknowledged, though I suspect it's more opportunistic than targeted. Divine energy naturally creates weaknesses in dimensional barriers. Naruto's emergence as a divine mortal hybrid may simply provide convenient points of entry. Can you help me prevent further breaches? Naruto asked. Vados studied him with thoughtful interest. My brother has taught you well, but your understanding of multidimensional mathematics remains rudimentary. I could provide additional instruction, if you wish. I would appreciate that, Naruto said sincerely. Excellent. I find your hybrid approach to divine energy quite innovative. Her expression held something beyond mere professional interest. My brother mentioned your creative applications during training. Wait, Tamari interjected, her diplomatic mind working rapidly. Are you offering to become Naruto's second divine instructor? Is that a problem, Ambassador? Vados asked with subtle amusement. It's a significant development with potential political implications, Tamari replied carefully. Two divine beings taking interest in a Anobi of the Hidden Leaf affects the balance of power across nations. Such mortal concerns, Vados said dismissively, though not unkindly. Dimensional stability transcends village politics. Without it, none of your borders or treaties would matter. Before Tamari could respond, 21 scanning devices activated with renewed urgency. Another dimensional fluctuation detected, larger than B4 and rapidly approaching our position. Already, Naruto turned toward the direction she indicated, extending his senses beyond normal perception. What he felt sent a chill through him, a massive energy signature, ancient and powerful. Moving through the dimensional barriers with practiced ease. That's not another breach, Vados said quietly. That's someone coming through deliberately. The air before them shimmered and distorted. But unlike the chaotic tier from before, this opening formed with precise, controlled geometry. Reality parted like a shoji screen sliding open, revealing a figure Naruto had hoped never to see again. Kagaya Otsutsuki stepped through the dimensional doorway, her white kimono and flowing pale hair unmistakable. The rabbit goddess, progenitor of chakra on ear, and nearly the destroyer of the shinobi world, had somehow returned from her sealed dimension. Tamari immediately moved into battle stance, her fan fully deployed. Impossible. She was sealed away permanently. Clearly not, 21 observed, her arm transforming into a defensive configuration. Naruto prepared to channel his divine energy, uncertain if even that would be effective against the ancient Otsutsuki. To everyone's surprise, however, Vados merely tilted her head with curious interest. How fascinating, the angel said. An Otsutsuki who's achieved partial ascension. I haven't encountered one of your kind in millennia. Kagaya's pupilless eyes fixed on Vados with immediate recognition. Angel, she stated simply. Then her gaze shifted to Naruto, widening slightly. You carry the energy of a destroyer god. Yet remain human. Impossible. I get that a lot lately, Naruto replied, maintaining a defensive posture. How did you escape the seal? I didn't escape, Kagaya replied, her voice carrying the same otherworldly quality he remembered. The seal was broken from the outside when the dimensions began collapsing upon one another. Someone is deliberately weakening the barriers between worlds. And we should believe you. Why? Tamari demanded. Because she's telling the truth, Vados interjected smoothly. I can sense the residual energy signatures. The seal was indeed broken externally. Kagaya moved closer, her attention fixed on Naruto. You have changed, Uzumaki. Your energy resonates differently now, like theirs. She glanced toward Vados. It's a long story, Naruto replied cautiously. Why have you returned? Last time you were here, you tried to convert all humanity into white Zetsu. Circumstances have changed. For the first time, Somethi. Almost like uncertainty crossed Kagaya's imperious features. The dimensional collapses threaten all realms, including my own. And something is different about me as well. Different how? 21 asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming caution. The seal created by the sage's sons contained me, but it also purified the black Zetsu's influence from my being. Kagaya's hand touched her chest in an unexpectedly vulnerable gesture. I am myself again, as I was before corruption took hold. Vados nodded as if this confirmed a theory. The seal was designed with unexpected wisdom. It separated divine corruption from the host rather than merely containing it. You believe her? Tamari asked incredulously. Angels perceive truth directly, Vados replied simply. She is not lying. Huff. Whether her purification remains permanent under stress remains to be seen. Naruto studied Kagaya with new awareness, his divine senses perceiving layers to her being that had been hidden during their previous encounter. The malevolent corruption that had driven her to extremes was indeed absent, leaving behind something more complex, a being of immense power but also profound isolation. You mentioned the Otsutsuki achieving partial ascension, he said to Vados. What does that mean? The Otsutsuki clan has long sought godhood through consumption of divine fruits, Vados explained. Quote, they achieve tremendous power but never true divinity, merely a shadow of it. They exist in the borderlands between mortal and god, never fully belonging to either realm. Like me, Naruto realized. No, Kagaya said unexpectedly. Your transformation is different. You were born of both realms, divine and mortal intertwined from inception. The Otsutsuki achieve our power through theft and consumption. The frankness of her self-assessment surprised everyone. This was not the same arrogant goddess who had declared all chakra hers to reclaim. If what you're saying is true, Naruto said slowly, then you might be able to help us understand what's happening with these dimensional breaches. I can do more than understand, Kagaya replied. I can help you prevent them. The Otsutsuki have manipulated dimensions for thousands of years. Few understand the mathematics of reality better than we do. 21 scanners beeped with new readings. Another fluctuation beginning, approximately 300 kilometers south. Larger than the previous breach. The pattern accelerates, Kagaya observed. Soon breaches will open faster than they can be sealed. Naruto made a decision. Despite their history, Kagaya's knowledge might be essential for preventing catastrophic dimensional collapse. We need to return to Konoha immediately. If these breaches are spreading, we'll need to coordinate a larger response. I can transport us, Vados offered, raising her staff. As the group prepared for instant transportation, Naruto noticed Temari watching him with an unreadable expression. Something wrong? He asked quietly. Just processing, she replied with remarkable composure. Divine beings, interdimensional androids, and now reformed goddess allies. You've come a long way from the loud genin I met at the Chunin exams. Despite the gravity of their situation, Naruto found himself smiling. Some things haven't changed. I still never give up, still protect what matters. I know, she said, surprising him with her certainty. That's what makes all of this, she gestured to the assembled group of extraordinary beings, somehow work. You remain fundamentally Naruto, no matter how cosmic things get. Before he could respond, Vados' staff descended, and reality shifted around them as they transported instantaneously back to Konoha, where a new chapter in the interdimensional crisis awaited. Chapter 3. Divine Shinobi. The Grand Temple of Cosmic Arbitration existed between universes, anchored to no single reality but accessible from all. Its architecture defied conventional physics. Massive crystalline columns supported seemingly impossible arches, while pathways spiraled through open space without visible support. Celestial bodies of various sizes orbited slowly through the central chamber, casting ever-shifting patterns of light across the assembled gathering. Naruto stood at the center of this impossible space, acutely aware of the 12 pairs of eyes fixed upon him. The gods of destruction from every universe sat in a semicircle before him, each radiating power that made his divine senses tremble. Though they shared the fundamental nature of destruction deities, our appearances varied dramatically, from humanoid to animalistic, elegant to grotesque. Beerus occupied the central position, his posture deliberately casual despite the gravity of the proceedings. To his right sat his twin brother Champa, a corpulent feline deity whose Universe 6 mirrored Beerus's Universe 7 in many respects. The other gods ranged outward in order of their universes, creating a living spectrum of destructive potential. Behind each god stood their angel attendant, with Whis positioned stoically behind Beerus and Vados behind Champa. The angels maintained perfect neutrality, Naruto thought he detected the slightest encouraging nod from Whis. We have convened this council of destroyers, announced the Grand Minister from his elevated position, to address the unprecedented emergence of a mortal divine hybrid with destruction capabilities. Such an entity exists outside established cosmic protocols. The Grand Minister, father to all angels including Whis and Vados, AP. Paired deceptively diminutive despite wielding authority that transcended even the gods of destruction. His placid expression revealed nothing of his thoughts regarding Naruto's existence. I still do. See why this requires a full council, grumbled Beerus, examining his claws with feigned disinterest. The boy is my offspring. That's the end of it. The end of it would be destruction of the anomaly, rumbled Rumshi. The elephant-headed god of destruction from Universe 10. Divine power should never mingle with mortal bloodlines. I rather like it, countered Hellas, the beautiful goddess from Universe 2. Such a unique mingling of energies could produce fascinating new forms of creation through destruction. Beauty often emerges from unexpected combinations. Champa leaned forward, his corpulent form barely contained by his ornate seat. The real question is whether this hybrid can actually control destruction energy properly. If not, he's a universal hazard that should be eliminated. Naruto maintained his composure. though the casual discussion of his potential elimination sent a chill through him. He understood now why Whis had insisted on 3 full months of intensive training before this council meeting. Perhaps a demonstration is in order, suggested Likir, the fox-like deity from Universe 8, his multiple tails swishing with interest. Let's see what this half-breed can do. A reasonable proposal, the Grand Minister agreed. Naruto Uzumaki, are you willing to demonstrate your capabilities for the council? Naruto stepped forward, bowing respectfully but without subservience. I am. With a gesture from the Grand Minister, the space before Naruto shimmered and expanded, creating an arena-like testing ground. At its center appeared a series of targets, some physical objects, others appearing as distortions in reality itself. These targets represent different forms of existence across multiple dimensional planes, explained the Grand Minister. A true god of destruction must be capable of erasing any form of reality with precision and control. Naruto approached the first target, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with internal energy. He felt the expectant silence of the assembled gods, each evaluating his worthiness to wield power similar to their own. Centering himself, Naruto connected with the divine energy within him. Unlike his early, chaotic outbursts on Earth, he now accessed this power with practiced precision. Purple energy flickered across his skin as his eyes shifted to violet. The whisker marks on his cheeks deepened and took on a purple hue. The visual manifestation of his divine heritage. Rather than using the traditional hand gesture of destruction employed by full gods, Naruto formed a modified hand sign that combined the focus of shinobi techniques with divine energy channeling. The crystal target disintegrated, not shattered or destroyed, but erased from existence in a perfect sphere of nothingness that left no trace behind. Adequate, mumbled Belmont, the clown-like deity of Universe 11. But basic destruction is the simplest application. Without waiting for further prompting, Naruto moved to the second target, a swirling vortex of temporal energy. This challenge required not just destruction but precise manipulation of time-space fabric. Drawing on Whis' training, Naruto extended his consciousness into the vortex, identifying its core frequency before applying a counter-harmonic pulse of destruction energy that caused the vortex to collapse in on itself and vanish. Murmurs of mild approval rippled through the divine audience. Naruto proceeded through increasingly complex targets, demonstrating not just raw destruction but the more nuanced applications: selective erasure, temporal manipulation, reality restructuring, and dimensional sealing. As he completed the standard trials, Champa's voice cut through the chamber. These rehearsed demonstrations prove nothing. Let's see how he handles an unexpected challenge. The corpulent deity snapped his fingers, and a swarm of energy constructs materialized, each resembling miniature galaxies spinning at different frequencies. Champa, Beerus warned, a dangerous edge in his voice. What? If he's truly worthy of divine heritage, this should be simple, Champa replied with feigned innocence. These constructs will detonate in 30 seconds. Each explosion powerful enough to fracture dimensional barriers. Destroy them all simultaneously, hybrid, or prove your inadequacy. The challenge was deliberately impossible using standard destruction techniques. Even experienced gods would need to target each construct individually, and there were dozens swirling in complex patterns. Naruto assessed the situation instantly, recognizing the trap. Conventional approaches would fail, but he wasn't limited to conventional divine techniques. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a burst of combined chakra and divine energy, Naruto created 20 perfect copies of himself, each containing an equal portion of his divine essence. The assembled gods straightened in their seats, many showing genuine surprise for the first time. Division of divine essence was considered impossible even among full gods. Fascinating application, Vados murmured, her voice carrying despite its softness. The clones moved with perfect coordination, each targeting a cluster of energy constructs. Rather than trying to destroy them individually, Naruto had another approach. The original and his clones simultaneously performed a complex sequence of hand signs before slamming their palms to the ground in unison. Divine Sealing Technique. Dimensional Pocket. A technique Naruto had developed by combining Uzumaki sealing jutsu with divine space manipulation spread across the arena. The energy constructs were suddenly contained within a pocket dimension where their detonations would harm nothing. As the constructs exploded within the sealed space, Naruto and his clones channeled the released energy into a perfect circle, then collapsed the pocket dimension entirely, leaving nothing behind. Silence fell across the chamber. Even Champa appeared momentarily speechless. That, said Gin, the skeletal god of destruction from Universe 12, was not destruction energy as we understand it. No, agreed the Grand Minister, his expression showing the first hint of interest. It was a hybridization of mortal chakra techniques and divine energy, something entirely new. Beerus couldn't quite hide his smirk. As I said, the boy has potential. He divided his divine essence 20 ways, Likier observed, leaning forward with newfound interest. That should be impossible. Many things once thought impossible become possible when we transcend established limitations, noted Vados. Earning a sharp glance from her brother Whis. Her gaze lingered on Naruto with something beyond professional assessment. Champa, unwilling to admit defeat, rose from his seat. Parlor. Tricks and creative applications don't change the fundamental problem. Divine power should remain with full gods, not diluted through mortal bloodlines. I challenge that premise, interrupted a new voice. All eyes turned to Korn, the normally silent angel attendant to Gin. By tradition, angels remained neutral in councils of destruction, making this intervention unprecedented. The angels have no voice in matters of destruction authority, Champa protested. We have voice in matters of cosmic balance, corrected the Grand Minister. Continue, Korn. The slender angel stepped forward. The multiverse faces increasing instability at its boundaries. Conventional approaches have proven inadequate to address these distortions. Perhaps hybrid perspectives offer solutions pure divinity cannot conceptualize. Murmurs spread through the assembled gods. Naruto maintained his composed stance, though inwardly he processed this unexpected support. The dimensional breaches on ear. Weren't isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a larger multiverse problem. Recent events in Universe 7 support this theory, Whis added, breaking his silence. The hybrid successfully sealed dimensional breaches using techniques no full god would have conceived. With assistance from my sister, Beerus pointed out dryly. Initial assistance only, Vados clarified. The innovative applicatee of merged energy systems was entirely his own. The Grand Minister raised a hand, silencing the discussion. Perhaps the emergence of this hybrid is not random chance but cosmic necessity. Evolutio N occurs at all levels of existence, even divine. Belmod scoffed. You suggest the multiverse itself is evolving. Preposterous. Is it? The Grand Minister's calm gaze swept the chamber. Creation and destruction exist in necessary balance, yet that balance has remained static for eons. Perhaps true equilibrium requires periodic innovation. Naruto sensed the conversation shifting into cosmic philosophy beyond even his recently expanded understanding. He focused instead on the practical implications. The council seemed to be moving toward acceptance of his existence, if only as a potential solution to interdimensional problems. I propose a trial period, suggested Hellas, the elegant goddess adjusting her flowing garments. Allow the hybrid to continue developing his unique abilities under proper supervision. If he proves valuable in addressing the boundary instabilities, his existence serves cosmic purpose. If not, she left the alternative unspoken. A vote was called. One by one, the gods of destruction registered their positions. The outcome was far from unanimous. 7 in favor, 5 opposed, but sufficient to establish provisional acceptance of Naruto's status as a legitimate wielder of destruction energy. It is decided, declared the Grand Minister. Naruto Uzumaki may continue to exist as a sanctioned wielder of divine destruction energy, subject to continued monitoring and evaluation. As the formal proceedings concluded and the gods began to disperse, Champa approached Naruto directly, his corpulent form radiating barely contained annoyance. Don't get comfortable with your victory, hybrid. He growled quietly. One mistake, one planetary accident, and I'll personally ensure your erasure from all realities. Before Naruto could respond, Vados appeared at her god's side. Lord Champa, your dessert awaits in your chambers. The interdimensional pastry chef has prepared that layered confection you enjoyed last millennium. Champa's threat dissolved immediately as his expression shifted to childlike excitement. The one with 17 types of cream. Why didn't you say so earlier? He wandered off, apparently forgetting Naruto entirely. He's not as fearsome as he pretends. Vados observed once her charge was out of earshot. Though his threats shouldn't be dismissed entirely. I understand, Naruto replied. In his position, I'd be wary too. Divine power in untested hands is legitimately concerning. Vados studied him with renewed interest. Most beings granted cosmic authority immediately assert their right to it. You acknowledge the validity of caution against yourself. Fascinating. Quote, I've spent my life being viewed as potentially dangerous, Naruto explained with a wry smile. First as a Jinchuriki, now as a divine hybrid. Understanding theirs, fear doesn't mean accepting their limitations for myself. A subtle smile curved Vados's lips. Perspective is a rare commodity among divine beings. Perhaps hybrid consciousness has advantages pure divinity lacks. Her staff hovered at her side as she added, I would be interested in further exploring those advantages, if you're amenable to additional training sessions. Before Naruto could respond, Beerus approached. His expression unreadable. The council has adjourned. Time to return to your mortal realm, boy. Vados bowed slightly. Lord Beerus, I was just offering to supplement you. Our son's training with interdimensional mathematics. Given the boundary instabilities, such knowledge seems prudent. Beerus's eyes narrowed suspiciously between Vados and Naruto. Whis is perfectly capable of teaching dimensional theory. Of course, she agreed smoothly. But additional perspectives benefit complex learning. Unless you object to your sister's involvement. A complicated expressio. Crossed Beerus's features. Something between irritation and reluctant amusement. Do as you wish. Just ensure the boy doesn't destroy anything important during your mathematics lessons. As Beerus stalked away, Naruto thought he detected the faintest hint of a knowing smirk on the destruction god's face. Your father is more perceptive than he pretends, Vados observed quietly. About what? Naruto asked. Vados merely smiled enigmatically and gestured toward where Whis awaited. We should join the others. I believe your mortal companions are anxious for your return. The Hokage's office been transformed into an interdimensional war room. Holographic displays generated by 21's technology showed fluctuating boundary zones between realities, while Kagaya had created a 3D dimensional model of the affected dimensions using her unique space-time manipulation abilities. Tamari coordinated with sensor teams from multiple nations via communication scrolls specially modified to transmit through the increasing dimensional interference. When Naruto materialized alongside Whis and Vados, the assembled group paused in their preparations. Well, Kakashi asked from behind his desk. Visible eye revealing the strain of managing a crisis beyond conventional shinobi understanding. The Council of Destroyers has granted me provisional status, Naruto reported. More importantly, they confirmed what we suspected. The dimensional breaches are symptoms of a larger multiverse instability. I told you so, Kagaya stated, without her former imperious tone but still direct. Her hair floated in a gravity-defying halo as she manipulated the dimensional model. The patterns indicate deliberate weakening of reality boundaries. Deliberate implies intelligence, 21 observed. Adjusting settings on a complex scanning device attached to her arm. An entity capable of manipulating dimensional barriers across multiple universes simultaneously. The boundary distortions follow a systematic progression. Vados confirmed, stepping forward to examine the models. With a delicate gesture of her staff, she enhanced the holographic display to show previously invisible energy currents. See these convergence points. They're being deliberately aligned to create a cascade effect. Tamari studied the enhanced display with narrowed eyes. So this isn't random. Someone's eating these breaches with a specific goal. But what goal requires destabilizing the entire multiverse? Kakashi asked. Even the Otsutsuki sought to harvest worlds, not destroy reality itself. All eyes turned to Kagaya, who continued manipulating her model with focused precision. There are beings older than the Otsutsuki, she said quietly. Entities that exist between dimensions rather than within them. In the ancient texts, they were called the Void Weavers. Void Weavers, Naruto repeated. Kagaya nodded, her expression troubled. They feed on the energy released when dimensions collapse into one another. The ancient Otsutsuki encountered them once before and nearly lost everything. It is why we developed dimensional travel technology, to escape their feeding grounds. That aligns with celestial records, Whis confirmed. Approximately 8 million years ago, an entire quadrant of Universe 10 experienced dimensional collapse. The previous god of destruction had to quarantine the affected region. So these Void Weavers are back and targeting all dimensional boundaries? Naruto asked. Not exactly, 21 interjected, her scanners displaying new data. Based on these energy signatures, we're dealing with a single entity, extraordinarily powerful but not a collective. Possibly the last of its kind. The last Weaver, Kagaya whispered, a hint of ancient fear in her voice. The Otsutsuki records spoke of one that grew so powerful it consumed its own kind. The revelation cast a somber silence across the room. An entity powerful enough to consume its own species isn't it a threat beyond anything they had faced before? Naruto broke the silence, his voice steady with newfound authority. Where is it now? Can we track its location? It exists primarily between dimensions, Vados explained. But to manipulate reality as it's doing, it must periodically anchor itself at nexus points where multiple dimensions intersect. 21 scanners beeped with fresh calculations. I'm detecting increased activity at a specific convergence point, a dimensional thin spot approximately 200 kilometers beneath the ocean floor between the land of water and the land of lightning. Underwater and underground, Tamari noted grimly. Difficult battlefield conditions. The physical location is merely where the dimensional boundaries are weakest, Kagaya clarified. The actual battle would occur across multiple reality planes simultaneously. Kakashi stood, his decision made. Assemble a response team immediately. I'll coordinate with the other cage to establish containment perimeters in case the situation deteriorates. This isn't a conventional threat that more shinobi will help against, Naruto said carefully. We need specific capabilities, not numbers. What do you propose? Kakashi asked. Naruto surveyed the room, his divine senses assessing each potential ally's unique capabilities. A small, specialized team with complementary abilities across dimensional planes. Myself. Vados for divine transportation and dimensional knowledge, 21 for scientific analysis and adaptive combat, Kagaya for her Otsutsuki dimensional manipulation, and D. Tamari for tactical coordination and conventional defense. Tamari raised an eyebrow. Me, against an interdimensional entity. Your wind techniques can create breathing space even in distorted reality, Naruto explained. And your strategic mind processes complex battlefield conditions faster than anyone I know. We need that. A faint flush colored Tamari's cheeks, though her expression remained professionally composed. When you put it that way, I can hardly refuse. This mission transcends village affiliations, Kakashi noted. As Hokage, I'm designating this an SS-rank interdimensional security operation. Naruto, you have full authority to act as needed. The responsibility settled on Naruto's shoulders with familiar weight, but now balanced by the confidence of both his shinobi training and divine abilities. We'll need to prepare carefully. Each of us must understand our role across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. I can create synchronized focal points to maintain communication between dimensions. 21 offered, already modifying her equipment. And I can establish anchor points in each reality to prevent team dispersal, added Kagaya, manipulating her spatial model to demonstrate. Vados observed their preparations with approving interest. Your mortal companions adapt remarkably quickly to cosmic concepts, Naruto. Perhaps there is wisdom in your hybrid approach after all. As the team finalized their preparations, Whis pulled Naruto aside for a private word. You understand that conventional victory may be impossible against a Void Weaver. These entities exist to consume reality itself. I understand, Naruto replied quietly. But there's always another way. That's something I learned as a shinobi before I knew anything about divine power. Whis studied his student with unexpected solemnity. Your father would simply destroy everything in the vicinity, consequences be damned. Your approach is different. Is that disapproval? Naruto asked. Quite the contrary, Whis replied with a small smile. It's why I believe you might succeed where pure divinity would fail. The multiverse occasionally requires unconventional solutions. The team gathered their final equipment and assembled for departure. Vados would transport them directly to the dimensional nexus point, where they would confront an entity that existed to unmake reality itself. The stakes had never been higher, yet Naruto felt a strange calm. the convergence of his shinobi spirit and divine heritage creating something stronger than either alone. "Everyone ready?" he asked, meeting each team member's eyes in turn. Temari adjusted her battle fan with practiced precision. Ready as one can be to fight an interdimensional void monster. 21 completed final calibrations on her equipment, her form shifting slightly as she optimized her cellular structure for the coming battle. Systems operational at peak efficiency. Keigaya's Rinne Sharingan opened fully, its concentric patterns pulsing with ancient power. The dimensional pathways are clear in my sight. Vados held her staff ready, its orb glowing with celestial light. Divine transportation prepared. I must say, this is the most interesting assignment I've had in several millennia. Naruto nodded, purple energy briefly flickering across his whisker marks as his divine power harmonized with his chakra. Then let's save reality. Vados tapped her staff once on the floor, and the team vanished in a column of light, bound for a battle at the very edge of existence. The nexus point between dimensions defied conventional description. It existed simultaneously as a physical location deep beneath the ocean floor and as an abstract convergence of multiple reality planes. The team materialized in a space that seemed to shift between states of matter, sometimes appearing as a vast crystalline cavern, other moments as an endless void filled with geometric patterns of light, occasionally resembling a seascape where water behaved like solid ground. Reality is thin here, Vados explained, her staff creating a stable bubble of normal space around the team. What you're seeing is multiple dimensions bleeding into one another. 21 scanners worked furiously, collecting data across spectrum frequencies normally invisible to mortal perception. The entity is present but diffuse, existent. Simultaneously across 7 different dimensional planes. Can we fight something that isn't fully in any single dimension? Temari asked, her tactical mind already calculating the practical challenges. We'll need to engage it across all planes simultaneously, Naruto replied, his divine senses extending beyond conventional perception. I can create shadow clones with enough divine energy to operate in each dimension. Risky, Keigaya observed. Dividing your consciousness across that many realities could leave you vulnerable to psychic fragmentation. I've handled worse mental stresses, Naruto replied with confidence. Thinking of his years containing the 9 tails. Kurama and I have developed techniques for maintaining mental cohesion across divided consciousness. Inside his mindscape, the massive fox stirred with interest. This will be unlike anything we've attempted before, Kit. Divine energy fragmentation isn't the same as chakra division. We'll adapt, Naruto replied internally. We always do. 21 scanners suddenly beeped with urgent readings. Energy surge detected. The entity is consolidating. The shifting reality around them began to coalesce, geometer. I see patterns arranging themselves into a massive, impossible structure. What emerged defied conventional anatomy. Part cosmic void, part mathematical construct, part sentient darkness. Tendrils of non-existence extended from its central mass, each touch erasing portions of reality that then reformed in distorted configurations. The last weaver, Keigaya whispered, ancient recognition in her voice. The entity pulsed with awareness, its attention focusing on their presence like a spotlight of anti-reality. When it communicated, the words formed directly in their minds, concepts rather than language, impressions of hunger, curiosity, and ancient loneliness. Interesting. Divine energy intertwined with mortal essence. Unprecedented configuration. Naruto stepped forward within their protective bubble. We've come to stop you from destabilizing the dimensional boundaries. Stop. Unnecessary concept. I consume boundaries. Existence flows together. Becomes one. Becomes void. Becomes me. That will destroy countless lives across multiple universes, Naruto countered. Destruction implies loss. Nothing is lost. All patterns absorbed. All energy preserved. Merely transformed. Transformed into your consciousness alone. 21 observed. Individual sentience would cease. Individuality is inefficient. Separation creates suffering. It also creates beauty, growth, and connection, Naruto replied. Differences between beings and realms allow for evolution and change. The entity pulsed with what might have been amusement or dismissal. Your perspective is limited by your existence as separate beings. Once absorbed, you will understand the perfection of unity. We can't allow that, Naruto stated simply. Allow. You cannot prevent cosmic inevitability. I have consumed galaxies, dimensions, even my own kind. Your resistance is merely final entertainment before absorption. The entity expanded suddenly, tendrils of void energy lashing out toward their protective bubble. Vados reinforced their shield with her staff. But the impact still sent shockwaves through their temporary sanctuary. Its attacks exist across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, Vados observed, her usual calm slightly strained. Even divine protection has limitations against such methods. Then we implement the plan, Naruto decided. His hands formed the Shadow Clone seal, but rather than channeling chakra alone, he merged it with divine energy in precisely the ratio Whis had taught him. Shadow Clone Technique. Divine Dimensional Division. 7 perfect duplicates of Naruto appeared, each radi, aiding the same harmonized blend of chakra and divine energy. Unlike conventional shadow clones, these duplicates shimmered with interdimensional resonance, each attuned to a different reality plane. Impressive application, Vados noted with genuine admiration. Naruto turned to his team. Each clone will anchor to a different dimension where the entity exists. You'll each partner with one clone to coordinate our attack across all planes simultaneously. Vados, can you create dimensional viewers so everyone can perceive all battlefields at once? The angel nodded, her staff creating 7 floating orbs around their sanctuary, each showing a different dimensional plane where part of the Void Weaver existed. We'll need perfect coordination, Naruto continued. The entity must be engaged on all planes at precisely the same moment to prevent it from simply shifting its consciousness to safety. I can synchronize our temporal experience across dimensions, 21 offered, activating a device on her wrist that created a unified countdown visible to all team members. And I can create dimensional anchors to prevent it from simply fleeing to other realities, added Kagaya, her hands alr. Edie weaving complex patterns in the air. Tamari studied the dimensional viewers, her tactical mind processing the complex battlefield conditions. The entity has different vulnerabilities in each dimension. See how its structure varies between planes. We'll need to target specific weaknesses in each reality. Exactly, Naruto agreed. That's why each of you will coordinate with a specific clone, attuned to exploit those vulnerabilities. He turned to his duplicates. You each understand your assignments. The clones nodded in perfect synchronization, each already resonating with the dimensional frequency of their assigned plane. Synchronization in 60 seconds, 21 announced as her countdown began. As the team made final preparations, the Void Weaver pulsed with what felt like amused anticipation. Interesting strategy. Futile, but creative. Your patterns will make welcome additions to my collection. We'll see about that, Naruto replied, his eyes shifting to their divine violet hue. Everyone ready. Dimensional insertion in 3, 2, 1. The sanctuary split into 7 coordinated teams, each transitioning to a different dimensional plane while maintaining perfect communication through Vados' viewers. What followed was a battle unlike any in shinobi history, fought not just across space but across the fabric of reality itself. In the first dimension, Naruto's C. Lone and 21 confronted a version of the entity that existed as mathematical equations made manifest. The android's analytical abilities proved perfectly suited as she identified pattern vulnerabilities that the clone exploited with precisely calibrated destruction energy. The mathematical constants are its structural framework, 21 called out, her arm transforming into a device at projected counter equations into the entity's form. Disrupt the prime number sequences. The clone channeled divine energy into shuriken-like constructs that sliced through the entity's numerical patterns, causing cascading disruptions through its structure. In the second dimension, Tamari and another clone faced a version of the Weaver that manipulated atmospheric conditions, creating storm stems that threatened to tear reality apart at the seams. Tamari's mastery of wind proved invaluable as she created counter-currents that neutralized the entity's atmospheric control. Its core maintains constant pressure differentials, she observed, her giant fan creating precise wind patterns. If we synchronize our attack with the barometric fluctuations. The clone nodded, timing his divine energy pulses to match Tamari's wind techniques in perfect harmony. Together they created a feedback loop that destabilized the entity's weather manipulation. Across 5 other dimensions, similar co-ordinated attacks unfolded, each team targeting specific weaknesses in that particular manifestation of the Void Weaver. Kagaya's dimensional manipulation proved crucial in preventing the entity from imply shifting its consciousness to safety, while Vados maintained the interdimensional communication network that allowed perfect coordination. The original Naruto remained at the nexus point, serving G is the central consciousness connecting all clones across dimensions. Through their shared perception, he directed the battle with strategic precision while monitoring the entity's responses. It's adapting, he called out as the countdown reached 30 seconds. Shifting its vulnerability patterns to compensate for our attacks. We need to accelerate the convergence. 21's timing device pulsed with warning signals. Energy readings suggest it's preparing to collapse all dimensions into a single point. If that happens, the resulting reality implosion will be catastrophic. Everyone push forward, Naruto commanded. All clones, prepare for synchronized divine impact on my mark. Across 7 dimensions, the battle intensified. In each plane, Naruto's clone and their partner pressed their advantage, forcing the entity to commit more of its consciousness to defense. The Void Weaver's attacks grew increasingly desperate, reality itself warping around them as it fought to maintain control. Your resistance is impressive but meaningless. I have devoured stars and consumed dimensions. You cannot defeat inevitability. We're not trying to defeat inevitability, Naruto replied as is consciousness synchronized across all 7 clones. We're creating a new possibility. The countdown reached 10 seconds. Across all dimensions, the clones began channeling their divine energy into a single, harmonized frequency. The technique they were attempting had never been tried before. A synchronized application of destruction energy across multiple dimensional planes, calibrated to the precise frequency of the Void Weaver's consciousness. 5 seconds to convergence. 21 called out. All dimensional anchors stabilized. Kagaya confirmed, her Rinne Sharingan blazing with power. Wind barriers at maximum capacity. Tamari reported, her fan creating protective currents around their position. Divine harmonization complete. Vados added, her staff pulsing with celestial light. Now, Naruto commanded. Across 7 dimensions, the clones executed identical hand seals, then slammed their palms against the fabric of reality itself. Divine energy flowed through precise chakra pathways, creating a technique that bridged shinobi traditions and godly power. Divine shinobi art. Multidimensional harmony seal. Instead of trying to destroy the Void Weaver, an impossible task. Given its nature, the technique created a perfect resonance field that forced the entity's consciousness into harmony with the natural dimensional boundaries. The Weaver's fundamental nature was not erasure but the absence of boundaries. By imposing a harmonious boundary structure onto its very being, they transformed its destructive consumption into stabilizing containment. The entity's consciousness pulsed with shock across all dimensions. What is this? My patterns. Restructuring. Becoming. Boundary. Not destruction, Naruto explained as the technique took hold. Transformation. UX. East to consume boundaries. Now you'll exist to maintain them. Impossible. Yet. Symmetrical. Unexpected pattern evolution. I become. Framework. The transformation cascaded across all 7 dimensions simultaneously. Where the Void Weaver had sought to collapse reality into chaos, it now became the very structure holding the dimensions in proper alignment. Its consciousness, once bent on consumption, reorganized around maintenance and stability. As the convergence completed, Naruto's clones dissipated, their divine essence and experiences returning to his original body at the nexus point. The strain of maintaining divided consciousness across 7 dimensions simultaneously left him momentarily dazed, but Kurama's stabilizing influence prevented fragmentation. Dimensional readings stabilizing across all planes. 21 reported, her scanners confirming what they could all feel, reality solidifying around them as proper boundaries reasserted themselves. The entity has been successfully transformed, Vados confirmed, her staff showing the new configuration of dimensional energies. Rather elegant solution, I must say. Most divine beings would have attempted simple destruction, which would have failed spectacularly, Kagaya added, her ancient knowledge confirming the assessment. Void Weavers cannot be destroyed, only transformed or contained. Tamari approached Naruto, who stood catching his breath at the center of their group. That was, unlike anything I've ever experienced, she said, genuine amazement in her voice. You didn't just win the battle, you changed the nature of the conflict entirely. Naruto smiled, his eyes returning to their natural blue as the divine energy receded. Some opponents can't be defeated through conventional victory. The void web, wasn't evil, just following its nature. Giving it a new purpose served everyone better than trying to destroy it. A very ungodlike perspective, Vados observed with subtle approval. Perhaps that's precisely why it succeeded. As the dimensional nexus stabilized around them, the transformed consciousness of the Void Weaver pulsed one final time across their minds. New purpose accepted, boundaries maintained, harmony, interesting alternative to consumption, your patterns worthy of preservation rather than absorption, equilibrium established. The entity's presence faded from direct perception, though Naruto could still sense it working throughout the dimensional fabric, now maintaining the very boundaries it had once sought to destroy. The immediate crisis had passed, though the larger implications would reverberate across the multiverse. Time to return, Vados suggested, raising her staff. I believe your cage will be anxious for a report. As they prepared for dimensional transit, Naruto looked around at his diverse team, a shinobi ambassador, an interdimensional android, an ancient goddess, and a celestial angel, each having contributed essential elements to their success. Barriers between their worlds had seemed insurmountable once, yet here they stood together, having accomplished what none could have done alone. Perhaps, he thought, that was the greatest lesson of his hybrid existence, not the power to destroy, but the ability to bridge worlds that never should have connected. The aftermath of the interdimensional crisis brought unexpected changes to both the cosmic hierarchy and the shinobi world. Representatives from the 5 great nations gathered in Konoha 1 week after the Void Weaver's transformation, joined by observers from smaller nations and, more surprisingly, by Whis and Vados as representatives of the divine realms. The expanded Hokage's office barely contained the assembled dignitaries. Naruto stood beside Kakashi, officially representing both Konoha and, unofficially, the interests of divine order. His position had evolved into something unprecedented. Neither fully shinobi nor fully divine, but a bridge between realms. The dimensional disturbances have ceased completely, Kakashi reported to the gathered leaders. Sensor teams across all nations confirm stability has returned to normal parameters. Normal parameters that now include awareness of multiple dimensions and divine beings, noted Darui, the Raikage, his expression carefully neutral. This fundamentally changes our understanding of reality. Change was inevitable. Once the dimensional barriers began weakening, Gaara observed from his position as cage. The question is how we adapt to this new knowledge. Kuretsuchi, the Tsuchikage, leaned forward with characteristic directness. Let's address the elephant in the room. Uzumaki Naruto now wields power beyond any cage, beyond any shinobi in history. How does that affect the balance of power among nations? All eyes turned to Naruto, who had anticipated this concern. My power exists to maintain boundaries between realms, not to influence shinobi politics. I propose establishing a new protocol, the Daime Ncional Concord, that clearly separates divine authority from shinobi governance. A separation of powers, Mifune, leader of the samurai, noted with approval. Similar to how the samurai maintain neutrality in shinobi conflicts. Precisely, Naruto agreed. I would formally recuse myself from direct involvement in international shinobi matters except where dimensional stability is threatened. Quote, and who determines when such intervention is necessary? Chojuro, the Mizukage, asked skeptically. A council with representatives from all nations, Naruto proposed. Working alongside scientific experts with specialized training in dimensional monitoring. The suggestion sparked intense discussion among the assembled leaders. While they debated the practical implementation, Whis leaned closer to Naruto. Quite the diplomatic solution, the angel observed quietly, creating frameworks where none existed before. Very unlike a traditional god of destruction. I'm not a traditional anything, Naruto replied with a small smile. Indeed not, which is precisely why the Grand Minister has authorized a most unusual arrangement. Whis glanced toward Vados, who nodded slightly. The Council of Troyers has recognized the value of your hybrid approach and wishes to formalize your position. As what exactly? Guardian of dimensional boundaries, Vados explained, joining their quiet conversation. A new cosmic office specifically created for your unique capabilities. You would maintain authority over dimensional integrity while serving as liaison between mortal and divine realms. Naruto considered the implications. Would I be required to leave Earth permanently? Quite the contrary, Whis replied. You would establish your primary sanctuary here, at the conjunction of multiple dimensional pathways. Your mortal connections are part of what makes your perspective valuable. The opportunity aligned perfectly with Naruto's evolving understanding of his purpose. Not quite mortal, not fully God, but something new that served both realms by existing between them. I accept, he said simply. As the official meeting concluded with preliminary agreements on the dimensional concord, Naruto found himself pulled into smaller conversations with various participants. Gaara approached first, his expression showing the subtle signs of emotion that only those closest to him could recognize. Guardian of Dimensional Boundaries, the Cage said quietly, an impressive title for someone who once struggled to be acknowledged at all. Naruto smiled at his old friend. Still feels surreal sometimes, yet you seem remarkably well adjusted to cosmic authority, Gaara observed. Perhaps because you never sought power for its own sake. There's a reason Temari was so effective in our interdimensional mission. Naruto replied, the Sand siblings understand better than most how to balance power with humanity. Gaara's pale eyes showed unexpected warmth. Speaking of my sister, she as requested reassignment as permanent ambassador to the Dimensional Concord. I approved it immediately, of course. Of course, Naruto echoed, unable to completely hide his pleased reaction. She claims it's purely professional interest. Gaara continued, the faintest hint of amusement in his voice. Diplomatic necessity and all that. Naturally. Indeed. Gaara glanced toward where Temari was. Engaged in conversation with Shikamaru and several other diplomatic officers. Though I've rarely seen her so enthusiastic about an assignment. Before Naruto could respond, 21 approached, our laboratory coat exchanged for more formal attire that somehow managed to appear both scientific and elegant. The Shinobi Science Division has approved my research proposal, she announced without preamble. I'll be establishing a permanent dimensional research facility adjacent to your sanctuary. That was fast, Naruto observed. I can be very persuasive when explaining scientific necessities, she replied with a small smile. And the opportunity to study stable divine-mortal integration is unprecedented. Your physiological adaptations alone could revolutionize our understanding of interdimensional biology. Should I be concerned that I've become your favorite research subject? Naruto asked, though his tone was light. Concerned. No. Flattered. Perhaps. 21's expression softened slightly. Your unique constitution helped me stabilize my own cellular integration issues. The techniques we developed together have reduced my predatory impulse fluctuations by 73%. I'm glad, Naruto said sincerely, though I suspect your research interests go beyond mere biological integration. Science is merely the beginning of understanding, she acknowledged. Some questions transcend empirical measurement, questions I find increasingly compelling in your presence. The subtle shift in her typically analytical demeanor wasn't lost on Naruto. Their work together had evolved from professional collaboration to something more personal, built on mutual understanding of existing between conventional definitions. As 21 was called away to consult on technical aspects of the dimensional monitoring systems, Kagaya approached. The former goddess still commanded instinctive wariness from most shinobi, but her role in the recent crisis had begun to reshape perceptions. The Otsutsuki dimensional archives have been successfully transferred to your sanctuary, she reported. Thousands of years of spatial mapping and interdimensional knowledge, now accessible to authorized researchers. Thank you, Kagaya, Naruto replied. Your contributions have been invaluable. She studied him with her pupilless eyes. You've created something unprecedented, a bridge between realms that have been separate since the dawn of consciousness. The implications are significant. Good significant or bad significant? Naruto asked. Unknown, she admitted with uncharacteristic uncertainty. But worthy of observation. I've decided to remain as custodian of the archives, at least until proper protocols are established. You're welcome to stay as long as you wish, Naruto offered. Your perspective spans thousands of years and multiple dimensions. We need that wisdom. Something like surprise flickered across Kagaya's elegant features. After everything I did, the war, the infinite Tsukuyomi. Attempting to absorb all chakra, you would still value my presence. The Kagaya who did those things was corrupted by black Zetsu and isolation, Naruto replied. The person standing before me now is different. Everyone deserves the chance to define themselves beyond their past. An unusually compassionate perspective for one with divine blood, she observed. Though, perhaps that's precisely why you succeed where pure divinity would fail. Your human heart balances your godly power. As Kagaya departed to oversee the archive arrangements, Vados materialized beside Naruto with characteristic celestial grace. Your mortal associates are remarkably adaptable, she observed. Most beings require centuries to adjust to cosmic revelations. Shinobi specialize in adapting to impossible situations. Naruto replied. It's practically in the job description. Indeed, Vados studied the assembled dignitaries with analytical interest. They organize and create systems where none existed, finding order within chaos rather than imposing it from without. Fascinating methodology. Different from how divine beings approach problems. Entirely different, she confirmed. Angels observe and guide. Gods destroy and reset. Neither would think to create collaborative frameworks between disparate interests. Maybe that's why the multiverse needs perspectives from all realms, Naruto suggested. Different approaches for different challenges. Vados turned toward him, her usually composed expression showing genuine curiosity. That hybrid perspective continues to intrigue me. I've existed for millions of years, yet your solutions surprise me, an increasingly rare experience in my existence. Is that why you volunteered to be my dimensional mathematics instructor? Naruto asked with a hint of teasing. Partially, she acknowledged with unexpected candor. Though my interest extends beyond academic curiosity, your integration of seemingly incompatible energies suggests possibilities I hadn't previously considered. What kind of possibilities? Connections between beings traditionally separated by cosmic hierarchy, she replied, her meaning clearer than her words. Angels observe eternity with perfect detachment, until occasionally, something disrupts that pattern. Before Naruto could respond to her surprisingly personal revelation, Kakashi called the gathering to order for final statements. The moment passed, but Vados's meaningful glance suggested their conversation would continue in more private settings. As the formal proceedings concluded and attendees began departing, Beerus materialized suddenly in the center of the room, causing several shinobi guards to take defensive positions before recognizing the god of destruction from briefing materials. Relax, mortals, Beerus drawled, casually examining his claws. If I were here for destruction, your posturing would hardly matter. Lord Beerus, Whis greeted, unsurprised by his charge's dramatic entrance. I wasn't expecting you to attend personally. I grew bored waiting, the destruction god complained. Besides, I should at least make an appearance at my son's inauguration or whatever this tedious ceremony is. The casual acknowledgement, the first time Beerus had publicly referred to Naruto as his son, created a ripple of murmurs through the remaining attendees. Naruto approached the feline deity, maintaining respectful distance but without the intimidation he'd first shown on Beerus's world. I appreciate you coming. Would you like to see the sanctuary we're establishing? Beerus made a show of examining the office with apparent disinterest. I suppose I could spare a few minutes. Does this planet still make that acceptable ramen? Ichiraku's has prepared a special interdimensional feast, Naruto replied, having anticipated this exact question, including varieties from 3 different universes. Beerus's ears perked up immediately. Well, why didn't you say so? Lead on then. Might as well see what you've done with your divine heritage. As they left the Hokage Tower, an unusual group formed around Naruto, Beerus and Whis representing divine authority, Temari as diplomatic liaison. 21 providing scientific perspective, Kagaya offering ancient wisdom, and Vados with her celestial knowledge. Together they walked through Konoha's streets toward the NAWLY established dimensional sanctuary at the village outskirts. Villagers stopped to stare at the unprecedented procession, divine beings walking casually alongside shinobi, the boundaries between worlds visibly bridged in physical form. Children pointed at Beerus's feline appearance with delighted curiosity while adults bowed respectfully to the cosmic visitors. They're not afraid, Beerus noted with mild surprise. Usually mortals cower when I visit a planet. They've had time to adjust to the concept of divine beings, Naruto explained. And Kakashi-sensei has done an excellent job with public information. HMPH. Takes some of the fun out of it, Beerus grumbled, though without real complaint. As they approached the sanctuary grounds, the true scale of what had been established became apparent. The main structure resembled a traditional Fire Country temple externally, but its interior spaces existed partially in other dimensions, creating a facility vastly larger within than without. Gardens of otherworldly plants surrounded meditation spaces designed for interdimensional contemplation, while research facilities housed technology from multiple universes. Not bad, Beerus admitted. Ted grudgingly as they toured the complex. Whis, why don't my quarters have these gravitational hot springs? Because you've never requested them, my lord, the angel replied patiently. The central chamber housed the heart of the sanctuary, a dimensional nexus point where monitoring equipment tracked boundary stability across multiple universes simultaneously. Here, Naruto would fulfill his new role as guardian of dimensional boundaries, maintaining the delicate balance between realms. As the others dispersed to explore different aspects of the facility, Beerus lingered, examining a wall disc. Laying both shinobi symbols and divine glyphs in harmonious arrangement. You've created something new here, the god of destruction observed, uncharacteristic thoughtfulness in his tone. Neither fully mortal nor properly divine. That seems to be my specialty, Naruto replied. Beerus turned to face him directly, yellow eyes scrutinizing his son with new intensity. Most hybrids end up rejected by both sides of their heritage. Yet you've somehow become essential to both. Impressive, if irritatingly unconventional. Is that approval? Naruto asked with mild surprise. Let's call it acknowledgement, Beerus replied carefully. You've taken divine blood and done something interesting with it instead of simply destroying things. Not the path I would have chosen, but apparently effective in its own way. Coming from the god of destruction, this qualified as effusive praise. Naruto recognized the significance of the moment, a bridge forming between himself and his divine progenitor, Beweel. Not on traditional familial bonds but on mutual respect for different approaches to cosmic order. Thank you, Naruto said simply. Beerus waved dismissively, his moment of seriousness passing. Yes, well, don't get sentimental about it. Now, where's this interdimensional ramen you promised? Gods of destruction don't wait patiently for meals, you know. As they rejoined the others for the celebration feast, Naruto found himself at the center of a gathering that would have seemed impossible months earlier, divine beings and mortals sharing food and conversation as equals. Tamari engaged Whis in discussion about interdimensional diplomatic protocols while 21 explained cellular manipulation theories to a surprisingly interested Beerus. Kagaya and Vados compared notes on ancient dimensional pathways, finding common ground despite their vastly different origins. Later, as evening settled over the sanctuary grounds, Naruto found a quiet moment alone on a balcony overlooking both Konoha and, through a dimensional window, several other realms simultaneously. The view perfectly represented his new existence, connected to multiple worlds while remaining grounded in his original home. Soft footsteps announced Tamari's approach. She joined him at the balcony railing, her diplomatic formality softened by the day's celebrations. So, guardian of dimensional boundaries, she said, how does it feel to bridge worlds that were never meant to connect? Strangely familiar, Naruto replied with a smile. I've been bridging gaps my whole life, between myself and the village, between shinobi nations, between Kurama and humanity. This is just on a larger scale. Much larger, she agreed, looking out at the dimensional window showing stars from another universe entirely. Though you say, am remarkably at ease with cosmic responsibility. I have good advisors, he said, glancing meaningfully at her. Tamari's expression softened slightly. My official appointment as diplomatic liaison comes with permanent residence at the sanctuary. For international relations purposes, of course. Of course, Naruto echoed, his smile widening. Purely professional, absolutely. She turned to face him directly. Professional restraint giving way to genuine connection. Though the ambassador might occasionally need to consult with the guardian on matters beyond strictly diplomatic concerns. Quote, the guardian would welcome those consultations, Naruto replied, the formality of their roles giving way to the personal connection that had been building between them. Their moment was interrupted by 21's arrival, her expression showing unusual excitement. I've completed the initial analysis of the dimensional confluence patterns. The results suggest possibilities we hadn't considered. Good possibilities or concerning ones? Naruto asked. Transformative, she replied, her eyes bright with scientific passion. The sanctuary's position at the nexus point allows for stable bridges between previously incompatible realms. We could potentially establish permanent connections rather than merely monitoring boundaries. Connecting realms permanently would have profound implications, Temari noted. Precisely why I'll need to work closely with the Guardian to explore the ramifications, 21 replied, her gaze lingering on Naruto with meaning beyond scientific collaboration. Quote, if you're amenable to extended research partnership, I'd like that, Naruto replied sincerely, recognizing the deeper connection forming beneath her scientific terminology. The balcony door opened again as Kagaya emerged, her ethereal white hair catching the moonlight. The Otsutsuki archives have revealed something unexpected, she announced without preamble. Ancient pathways between dimensions that could be reactivated with the right combination of chakra and divine energy. More dimensional connections? Temari asked. Of a different nature, Kagaya clarified. These would link competitive energies across incompatible spaces, allowing for harmonization without merging. The principles are complex, requiring extensive study with someone who understands both chakra and divine power. Her usually imperious gaze held unexpected vulnerability as she looked at Naruto. I would value your collaboration in this research. My understanding of dimensional pathways combined with your hybrid energy could unlock possibilities neither of us could achieve alone. Before Naruto could respond, a delicate throat clearing announced Vados' arrival. The angel materialized with characteristic grace, her staff hovering at her side. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, though her smile suggested she knew exactly what she was interrupting. I've received communication from the Grand Minister regarding your new position, Naruto. He requests regular celestial tutorials to refine your dimensional mathematics, which I've volunteered to provide personally. How generous of you, Temari observed dryly. Indeed, Vados agreed pleasantly, though my interest extends beyond mere professional obligation. The Guardian's unique perspective offers insight into questions angels have contemplated for eons, the nature of connection across cosmic hierarchies. The balcony had become rather crowded with the four women, each expressing in her own way an interest in Naruto that transcended their professional collaborations. The situation might have been awkward if not for the genuine connection he'd formed with each of them through their shared experiences navigating the boundaries between worlds. Quote, it seems the Guardian of Dimensional Boundaries has many potential advisors, 21 observed with scientific precision but unmistakable humor. Each offering unique and valuable perspectives, Naruto agreed diplomatically, though his smile held warmth for each of them individually. Fortunately, the sanctuary exists partially outside conventional space-time. We have room for many collaborative projects. The double meaning wasn't lost on any of them, prompting subtle smiles all around. Their unusual gathering represented exactly what the sanctuary was designed to facilitate, connections between beings from different worlds finding common purpose and understanding. Later that night, after the celebration had wound down and most guests had departed, Naruto stood alone in the central chamber of the sanctuary. The dimensional monitoring systems hummed softly around him, tracking the newly stabilized boundaries between realities. Through specialized viewers, he could observe dozens of different worlds simultaneously, from the familiar shinobi nations to distant galaxies in other universes. Kurama stirred within his consciousness. Quite the change from the lonely orphan shunned by the village, the Nine-Tails observed. Divine heritage, cosmic responsibilities, and four extraordinary women each interested in different aspects of your existence. Life takes unexpected turns, Naruto replied internally. Though I never imagined it would turn quite this interdimensional. The kid who once dreamed of being Hokage now guards the boundaries between universes, Kurama chuckled. And somehow, it suits you perfectly. Naruto placed his hand on the central monitoring crystal, feeling the pulse of countless realities flowing through the nexus point. His divine senses could perceive the transformed consciousness of the Void Weaver maintaining dimensional integrity across the multiverse, while his human heart remained connected to the people and village that had shaped him. Divine and mortal, destruction and creation, isolation and connection, opposites that had found harmony in his hybrid existence. The path forward wouldn't be simple, but it would be uniquely his own, a Divi. Nay, shinobi bridging worlds that were never meant to touch, yet somehow belong together. Outside the sanctuary windows, stars from multiple universes shone together in impossible conjunction, different realities sharing the same view. Different worlds finding common ground. A fitting symbol for the new balance Naruto had helped create, not through destruction or force, but through understanding and connection. The guardian of dimensional boundaries looked out at the multiverse and smiled. His journey had only just begun. Blank, blank. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.